This is the committee of the whole part of our evening. And the first item is going to be a presentation by the chief, introduction of new police recruit. Chief?
Just unmuted. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me here to introduce our newest candidate. I see he's on. He's logged in. He'll talk to you in a minute. Just go over a couple of things. So a couple weeks ago, I sent you an email with like a little a rundown of basically who we selected, but just for the record, and you can meet him for the first time to speak to him. His name is Vincent Libretti. He's 26 years old. He resides in Ramsey, New Jersey, so he's a Bergen County kid. He's very familiar with the county and life in these parts. He's earned a Bachelor's of Arts degree in International Studies from the Rand Paul College. He's a United States Marine Corps reservist with one deployment to Afghanistan. He was the hiring panel's unanimous selection out of 152 candidates. The process consisted of a written examination, physical fitness assessment, and 2 interviews. And he was selected by the panel. He then passed a battery of other tests and exams, qualified for employment to be accepted to the police academy. That's the psychological, the drug test, the background test, criminal background test. That's all those things. On January 4th, he took his oath of office at the station and officer. Obviously, we would like to do that in person, but with COVID, we could not do that. But maybe at a later time, we could possibly do this for his family. It's a very special moment, you know, something in someone's life or something. Maybe if we could do that
Chief, can I interrupt for a second? Sorry to do that to you. I just want to ask whoever is not speaking to just please mute yourself so we don't hear the background noise. We appreciate it. Chief, go ahead. Okay.
So, he's been working in the department ever since being sworn in on January 4th. He's been doing some dispatching duties and preparing himself for the basic course of police officers at the Bergen County Life and Public Safety Institute, which is really basically the police academy. We expect him to graduate from the academy in June, and then he'll embark on his field training requirement, which is about a month and a half. So the academy basically teaches you how to be a police officer in the state of New Jersey, and then the field training then teaches you how to be a police officer in Tenafly, and then he'll be shadowed by an officer for a couple more months, and then he'll be on his own. But we don't anticipate any problems there. We're thrilled to add him to our ranks, and we look forward to having him serving the borough following this training mandate of the academy and then the field training mandate. And with that said, I'd like to introduce. You just unmute yourself there, Mr. Officer Vincent Libretti.
Good evening, everybody. It's very nice to meet you all, albeit on WebEx. I'm looking forward to completing the academy soon and getting to work with Tenafly, becoming part of the community. And thank you for having me here tonight.
Nice to meet you, Vincent. Welcome aboard.
Thanks for coming. Good luck.
Any council members have any questions for Vincent or the chief?
No, I want to say welcome. We look forward to having you serve our residents and our community. So thank you for coming on board on Tenafly. Thank you, Chief, for that introduction.
Thank you. I just want to point out his first day in the academy, the day that they usually beat you up. So one of the concerns I had was that I always feel that every new candidate should, something actually have boot camp. And with COVID, it's been abbreviated in the past. And there's been a little bit of remote. There's been something I've heard they've been doing some physical training remotely, which I don't trust. I want the candidate to actually be beat up by a drill instructor. But if that doesn't happen, at least we know that he's a Marine and he had 6 months of a real boot camp. So it's all about discipline. So I know he's going to do well.
That's fabulous, Chief. Well. Look, Vincent, best of luck and congratulations, and we're glad to have you.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm very happy to be a part of the team and part of the community.
Wonderful. When does the academy over, Chief?
I think it's mid-June, correct, Vincent?
Yes, sir. Right now, the tentative date is June 16th for graduation.
Okay. Best of luck in the academy.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Welcome aboard. Okay. Anything else, Chief?
I don't believe so.
Okay, thank you both for participating and taking the time out of your day for being here tonight with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, we'll continue on. The next item on the agenda is the fence ordinance. And I think the goal of this discussion with the council this evening is to get a consensus from the council to move forward and making these changes to the ordinance as recommended by the planning board and the LDR committee. Just a little background in terms of the process. The planning board has had this in their lap for about 3 months now. The LDR committee went back multiple times at the request of the planning board, trying to resolve the different issues and the conflicts in the law and the ordinance. And they've recommended these changes, which I support. Not to speak for Councilman Grossman, but he supports them also only because we both sit on the planning board and we both voted in favor of it. This is an issue that affects the entire town in a very significant way. And I guess I would open it up to questions from the council or comments from the council.
Yeah, I've read this and I'm supportive of this as well. I would have no problem supporting this with proceeding.
Jeff?
Yeah,
Thank you,
Mayor,
Joyce.
as you said, I do sit on the planning board, and there were some wording changes that had been recommended. They came back to the board, and I do support this. I think the alternative of leaving the current language, which clearly was a mistake, would make it so that about half our homeowners would have to cut down arborvitae to 6 feet and other hedges to that height. And we did look, and we were all sympathetic to the homeowner involved where this situation occurred, but we did look to see if there were any other ways to word this, and really after a lot of discussion there wasn't. So I am very much in favor of this ordinance revision.
Any other questions from council members? And I can't see everyone's hand. So council members, feel free to speak up.
This is Lauren. I had asked Jeff this question separately as well. I agree that the definition of hedge should not include any of the word fencing. So Jeff, I thank you for your response to that. I would like to redefine, though, the way hedge is written in the definitions in Chapter 35, only because I think it is a little misleading. And it says a hedge shall mean a group of bushes, shrubbery, other plant life, without any further information. So anything on my property, basically in the front of my house or in the middle of my lawn, just became a hedge. I had proposed, and I would like to see something a little bit more accurate. So I would like to propose a definition that says a hedge is a natural boundary formed by closely growing bushes, shrubbery, or other plant life. I said to create division or privacy in outdoor spaces. I think a hedge is a very unique thing on a border. It typically is not in the center of landscaping. I think we should define it because I think that this definition is a little too vague for me.
So I just want to ask Wendy. Wendy, you there?
I am.
Does that affect the policy issue we're trying to do here? Is there?
No, it doesn't. And I just wanted to actually jump in, if I may, and point out to the council that Section 10 of the ordinances also defines fence and hedge. And while the definition in Chapter 10 is the same for hedge as it is currently in Chapter 35, in Chapter 10 of the code book, the definition for fence is different and isn't quite so clear that a hedge would have fallen within that definition. So I just want to point out that not only does this help clear up the issue of the height of plant life versus what is a fence, but it also will be correcting an inconsistency that already exists in your code book.
Okay, so I don't have any issues with Council President Dayton's comments about the hedges. It still accomplishes the policy goals we're trying to get to here. Correct?
Correct. The policy goal really is to remove the plant life hedges from the definition of fence. The definition of fence is a separate issue.
Okay, so what do we need to move this forward, Wendy? What do we need to do? Oh, I'm sorry.
Mark.
Oh, Mark, go ahead. I mean, news, sorry.
Yeah, just in terms of actual, what is the actual impact on the two neighbors that are we're talking about for this for?
So this is I've read some of the emails. Of course, I've read the emails from the neighbors. One came out this afternoon, and I think the one that came out this afternoon is kind of the unfortunate clearest thing. Is apparently, these aren't my words, I'm paraphrasing though, the neighbors used to have an agreement in terms of how they maintained the hedge. They no longer have that agreement, and I'm not sure that there is a legislative or a municipal answer to that particular problem. I think they're going to have to unfortunately work that out amongst themselves to figure out perhaps they can go back to being in agreement on it. I'm not sure how we can craft an ordinance specific to resolve this particular problem.
Right. Okay.
am I allowed to speak at some point?
During the public comment time, you'll be able to speak in a little while in the public meeting. Any other questions?
Before the vote happens, I'll be able to speak?
So not at this point, no, because this is a town-wide policy issue. It's not about any one particular resident. And during public comment time, so all we're doing tonight is asking for a consensus to move forward. There'll be subsequent votes to this. The council's not voting in the sense of this conversation for a final action.
Can I ask Wendy a procedural question?
Of course.
So Wendy, if we do want to just make sure that the hedge is not just defined as a random group of bushes and shrubbery in the landscaping, and want to have, the closely grown language, how do we proceed? Do we give that language back to the planning board for consideration? What is the next step on something like that kind of change, a definition?
So you would need to do any change in your ordinance, as you know, would have to be done by another ordinance, which is 2 readings. There'd be introduction and second reading, and there's certainly time within the first reading and second reading to send it back to the planning board for consistency.
So based on what you just said, Wendy, and Lauren's question, so we could move this forward for the first reading and then make them consistent amongst the chapters and the change to the edit. Is that what you're saying?
Well, actually, the planning board recommendation pointed out that the 2 chapter definitions needed to be aligned. So the ordinance would actually include amendments not only to chapter 35, but an amendment to the definitions in chapter 10. So that's already been provided by the planning board. I think what Council President Dayton is asking is if the governing body wanted to make an additional change to a definition that was not already part of the recommendation from the planning board.
Are there any objections or comments to that from the governing body?
Just for clarification, so Councilwoman Dayton, so we're taking the word from your proposed language, the word fence is being taken out though.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear on that so that we're on the same page. Good. That
Yes.
was the only thing that I thought
My concern was that just a group of shrubbery, bushes, or plant life was too vague to be a hedge. So I was just trying to give it a little bit more descriptive purpose.
All right, so it's if there's no other discussion amongst the council members, it sounds like we have a consensus to move forward on this with the recommended edits from Council President Dayton and the alignment of the chapters as per the borough attorney. Is that correct, Wendy?
Yes, that's what I understood as well. Yes.
Okay, so what else? Do you need to know anything else from the council in order to move forward here? Or you'll tee this up?
I'll tee it up. I think we're good.
Okay, all right, thank you. Next item to be considered is the youth center, possible furniture donation. Who wanted to take the lead on this one? Lauren?
I had sent the email in to Vinu as the liaison. I thought maybe he'd take the lead.
Oh, sure, of course, Vanu.
Well, I mean, I'd be happy to take the lead. I just don't know what all the details are because I wasn't included in the details. So it may be it may be incumbent on Council President Dayton to describe it.
Okay, happy to. We have had a request from a resident to make a donation to our youth center of furniture. This is somebody who I don't think is looking for anything in return. I think she's trying to do a service for the town, but I'll let her represent herself. I've put her in touch with Vinu as the liaison to the youth center, with Mark Slauson as the director of the youth center, and with our VA, Jimmy, to work out the details. So I have not spoken to her since that email came through. And if, with your permission, I'd like to turn it to Jimmy to give us an update. If I believe he has spoken to her.
Jimmy, take it away.
Yes, so we did receive all the furniture. There's a lot of great things. We have it in storage. It was in the McCandless room. Now it's at DPW, being held till after tonight's meeting. And that's the intent, is to make it available to the youth center. I believe, I believe with some discussions with some of the council members, I believe it would be good not with some of the furniture be made available to other departments after it's made first available to the youth center to see what may be useful for their use, for their room.
I'd like to ask Jimmy a question. He may be a little bit green to the town, but I think he'd have a response. Does it seem like a normal procedure to just drop off furniture without having a full plan in effect, with the discussion with the director of the facility? I mean, how would this normally happen? Is this normal?
Well, I don't know much of the back history. What I was made aware of, that it was going to be delivered on a certain day, and to make accommodations for the delivery. So anything prior to that, with my hired, being new to the borough, I was not aware of any of the back history in terms of conversations or arrangements.
Mayor Zander, may I step in?
Can I respond?
Go ahead, Lauren.
Sorry, Mark. If Mark wants to speak,
go ahead, Lauren.
Okay. So again, this is a unique situation that has, I don't think, come up before our council. And, we were approached for a generous donation here for our youth center or for any facility that needs it, the library, the senior center, our TVAC, furniture. And, when it was presented to myself, I immediately put it, for suggestion to the rest of the council. It was discussed. It was discussed with the mayor. It was discussed with Jimmy. None of us knew the furniture was going to get delivered in the fashion it did. When that occurred, we sent it over to Jimmy to see if we wanted to, how we wanted to handle it, to Susan, to make sure that we were able to accept it. So it has been vetted by our borough. Again, I thank the resident, Jeannie, so much for this generous donation, and I hope we can make it work for our facilities. And Susan, I don't know if she's on yet, but I would like to hear from her. I know she had asked permission to make sure everything was allowed.
I'm going to just interject myself for a second, just to follow up with what Lauren just said. I fully supported and understood about this donation, from the resident. It's a good idea. Why not? There's new furniture. It's an opportunity. Perhaps we use it in the youth center. Maybe we'll make use of it somewhere else and do a little upgrading without costing the taxpayers any money. I was all good with that. Go ahead, Benu.
Yeah. I mean, the only reason I'm asking the question is, I don't know that we necessarily had a plan of when, of what is going to go into the youth center. Whether there was some kind of a discussion with the director of the teen center, and whether, if somebody drops off 9 million widgets, what is our policy for accepting whatever somebody donates. And yeah, Wendy might be the appropriate person to respond to that.
So, if I may, a donation of this type of furniture would be covered by the local lands and buildings law, so you would actually need to accept it by ordinance.
Okay, very nice.
Lauren, you had a question?
I did. I just want to say, I agree that it needed a plan. I didn't think I was the correct person to create the plan, which is why I gave it to Councilman Menon about a month ago, so that way he can work directly with them.
Not at all. No, you did not. Sorry. We'll talk about this offline, but no, that was
that's
not
fine.
recollection.
But when we had the in-person meeting at the youth center,
And
that was the intention.
Could I know what day that was?
July 5th.
January 5th.
I'm sorry.
So
it's 20 days ago.
Okay,
and
20 days, not 30. I'm sorry.
Anyway,
so Wendy, how do we move this? I propose we move this forward so that this generous donation can be considered by our council.
So we would need to do it by ordinance. If you have all the information and we can read it into a title, the agenda could be amended for your action meeting that follows, or we could have it on for the February 9th meeting for introduction.
Jimmy, do we have the information? I don't have the information.
I mean, I have what email I was included on. I had to check to see if all the items that were there were included on that email that were delivered. But that was kind of it. I only have what was made in that email.
Benu, you had a question, please?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that it was in the record that we had a meeting on January 5th. I was informed about 10 minutes before, a potential walkthrough, and the walkthrough was not for the purpose of discussing furniture donation. It wasn't for the purpose of, and I need to have this on the record, that none of this was discussed in the manner that it was. On that date, there was no discussion about a furniture donation to me, and then I was notified of a potential donation a day before it actually was delivered. So I think just the timeline of this doesn't make sense to me, and and then the question is whether our director, who is in charge of the facility, has had a chance to weigh in on the donation, or had a chance to look at it. All of those things. I understand people being generous. I mean, but we need to have, as our borough attorney said, there is a process, and we're not understanding the process before we allow for these things to happen, and we should be following a process.
Okay. Susan, go ahead. You had your hand up. Then Jeff, please.
So I did call to say, so I guess we could do it either by resolution or ordinance. And then we just have to put it into the fixed asset report, but it's really the adoption by the governing body should be first. So I think Wendy's probably right with the ordinance, even though the state said a resolution, but we should get the donations always after it's adopted by the governing body, and then finance will put it into the fixed asset report.
Jeff?
Yeah.
Jeff was next, then Benu.
So first I want to thank Gene for the donation. That's awesome and really appreciated. That's great. And I'm glad when people do that. I just want to say that, look, I haven't made donations that I can remember to the borough because I donate a lot of time and effort, but I have donated to schools, several schools. And when I donate goods to schools, um, even when I've talked to Board of Ed members who I know, they immediately refer me to the superintendent. And I think that going forward, that would just be a good general policy. We don't have a superintendent, we have a borough administrator. And I think at the time, obviously we didn't, we were interregnum between borough administrators. But I think going forward, when someone asks this, it should definitely go to the borough administrator, who can then make sure all the department heads are in line with this, that there's no particular, I don't even know reading this if there's a limit as to what can be used for, because sometimes people give restrictive donations. And so really letting our professionals handle it, our borough administrator, our attorney, our CFO, and kind of stepping back. And our job then is to say, thank you. I've forwarded it to the parties who should really be handling it. And I think that would just really resolve some of what we saw with this. And again, I understand we were in between borough administrators, but sorry, Jimmy, I'm putting some work on your shoulders there, but it's really, that's where I think it belongs.
So
agree.
Perhaps at this stage, we have Jimmy and Wendy and Susan, to the extent she needs to add her side of it from finance, get together and decide whether this is a resolution and an ordinance. I'm not clear that we need to rush either of those tonight, or it gets on the next agenda once Wendy and Jimmy get it all nice and organized and buttoned up. And in the meantime, we can put a plan, Jimmy can put a plan together with the different department heads it affects, the best use for everything. Yes, Vinu.
Yeah, so now the other side of this is we're kind of moving in a direction that we're going to accept it, and we're going to pass the ordinance and everything, but that's not guaranteed. Now, let's say we don't pass the ordinance and we don't accept the furniture. What happens to the furniture?
So you're asking me anecdotally? I'm giving you an anecdotal answer.
Right. Yes, it's an anecdotal answer. And the question is, once we physically take possession of goods that are donated, where, without actually accepting it through ordinance, where do things lie at that point?
I don't have the answer, because that's like a legal question almost. But that I think let's cross that bridge when we come to it. Get the resolution together and/or the ordinance. They will figure that out, and then there'll be a vote. And you're right, there's no guarantee the council will accept it. If they don't, then we'll cross that bridge. If they do, we have a different set of priorities.
And one last thing, I think I don't know if we are allowing the director to speak, but he's been asking if he could.
Yeah, of course. He's a department head. Yeah, of course. Mark, please.
First of all, thank you guys for letting me speak. Second of all, I would like to, Jeannie, I would like to thank them for what they, thinking of the teen center for the donation. I've looked at the furniture. I only think that we can use just maybe the chairs. That's it. A lot of the stuff that was brought up, it can't be in the teen center. When they, I'll be honest with you, Vanu, I was totally shocked too, because I got a phone call about the tour of the teen center, and then all of a sudden this happened. It was also shocked when the furniture arrived, because it arrived within, I think, a week after we had the little walkthrough of the teen center. So. And that was one of the major problems, because there was no place to put it, and then we had to worry about trying to figure out where to put it. I know in the past, when donations have been made, sometimes I've gone out to the house to see it, or people have brought in pictures before, and I've told them if I needed the stuff or not. This was really done, what I felt was haphazardly. And I think that when things like that are donated, that the directors need to know ahead of time. And we also need to be in the conversation along with Jimmy as to what the procedures are going to be when it comes to these type of donations.
Okay, let's, all just take a step back together, and, Wendy and Jimmy are going to get together to figure out what we need to do that's appropriate as a council. There's opportunities to use the furniture in the new T-back trailers, and, we'll figure it out. And, we'll go from there. In the meanwhile, thank you to Gene, the resident who did this. And any other questions about this? Or we're ready to move on? Okay. All right. Thank you, Mark Slauson, for being here tonight. Okay. Open space and stormwater erosion resolution.
So this one is mine. I would like to ask permission to the council to create a resolution, making sure that the planning board has this as a priority for 2021. As you guys know, I presented in December that our stormwater erosion ordinance needs to be updated with the planning board, as well as, I believe, our open space plan of the planning board. The last I saw it updated, and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, I had asked for the latest copy and I saw 2008. So now it's been a significant amount of time, and I think our green spaces and open space initiative should be looked at again. But, do you know if there's an addendum to that?
Jeff, I happen to know that because I was talking to Mary Beth when you direct me. I just want to jump in and help Jeff out. Is that,
go ahead, Julie.
I know that Mary Beth with the planning board said that the open space committee is currently working on the open space element, and they're close to completing that work. When it's done, they're going to be sending a draft to the mayor and council for comments. I don't know, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if this addresses Councilwoman Dayton's element about the storm water drainage, but I did want to say that other piece was in the work.
That does need to be added. I was going to say the same thing about the open space has been on the planning board's table and they've been working on that. But the stormwater, I believe, does need to be updated, which should be pretty pro forma since that's a statutory requirement. And last time we had that, it only took us, what, as a council, 3 years to get from the planning board drafted into an actual ordinance and then approved by this body. We'll do this in about 6 months.
So we by statute have to do at least the stormwater part by March 2021. So we have, 45 days, whatever it is.
So we're talking about tasking the planning board to reviewing this.
Yes.
So Jeff, did we have an ETA on that open space element? Just, because I did know it was already being worked on, but any thoughts on that?
Not offhand. It hasn't come up at the planning board for general discussion. So I can find out from the chair where we're at on that exactly. They've been really trying to figure out how to have full hearings on the Bottle King application and on the self-storage application, both of which have, I think, consumed a lot of their time at meetings. So I will find out and report back at the next meeting.
Jeff, if you can let them know, Mazer and I both attended some conferences on this. And so there's some fantastic presentations that they can probably access as well on at least the stormwater erosion and possibilities for credits for good green building, things that are pervious coverage and driveways and new technology. I thought it was fantastic. I'd love to include it in our plan. And then I also believe that Mazer was going to directly reach out to you or Mayor Zinna on this as well about the deadline.
I haven't heard from them. Mayor, have you?
I have not discussed it with them.
Okay.
I'll be on the priority list tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll be on this. The mayor will be on one aspect of it. I'll be on the other. We'll get this done.
Great. Okay.
Teamwork.
I think we can move on then.
Okay. All right. No other questions about that. We'll move forward on that. Let's go to the temporary capital budget. Susan, would you like to walk us through this?
Sure. Let me just get my. Okay, so as you can see, mainly what's on temporary capital budget is the road program, because we like to get an early start. So right now we have in there the DOT from 2020 and the townwide road resurfacing, which will be the Riverside Co-op. Then we have culvert inspections that Major just received a letter that we need to complete. And then we have the downtown revitalization plan, the hazmat study for the Tenafly Recycling Center and the shed demolition. And we should add in as soft cost future bonding, which I think we're going to put in this year and next year, so that we could possibly do a bond next year, which would be included in this ordinance. So what I'm asking the governing body to do is look this over. The one item that will, I missed a couple items. We also have the air stripper and the backup generator, sewage pump station. The one item that is not going to be included that you saw is the $15,000 for the tree truck. That's going to be covered under a different ordinance. So the total in the temporary capital plan for all of the items listed would now be $2,760,000, and a down payment required would be $138,000. Keep in mind that eventually we should be able to get grant money for the 2020 roads that are the second phase of the Hudson Street. So that would come in at a later date, but you have to appropriate the whole amount. So basically what I'm asking the governing body to do tonight is agree on what's been put before you. So temporary capital plan, we need to do a bond ordinance then on February 9th. We would adopt on February 23rd. And then there would be a 20-day estoppel period, and that's when the money can be spent. And then we would have this done. So what I need everybody to do is to agree or vote on this plan, that I can move forward with it and have our bond council draft up the bond ordinance.
Banu?
Yeah.
Thank you, Susan. Banu?
Right. Thank you, Susan. I'm looking at the 2,775,000, and I'm just a little puzzled. I look at this as the kind of like an emergency spending plan, before the budget, and in that I kind of I'm not sure what the reason is for having 1.5 million. I think last year. Can you explain, Susan, how much we put into the roads program last year?
$2 million. We put 1.5 into Riverside Co-op and 500,000 into other roads that we did. We did 1.5 in the temporary, and then 500,000 when we introduced the operating budget and the capital budget.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's what. So I put the whole amount, which Mazer instructed me to do for the DOT, and for the road. The only place you could really take this down if you wanted to, but I know roads are a big initiative for Tenafly, is in the Riverside Co-op roads, which we try to get done quickly so that we could be having our roads done in the spring. So the only area to reduce would be not in the New Jersey dock roads, but in the town-wide road paving.
Right. So the reason I'm asking, I agree with the 696 for the second phase of the Hudson Street. The 1.5, given our current situation, last year when we were looking at the budget and we put in the 1.5, we did not have COVID. We didn't have a question about whether, we might get tax, whether we'd be able to get all of our tax funds in, all of that. We didn't have any of the issues that we currently have. I'm looking at the 1.5 and thinking that we could probably bring that down to 500 for this period, and then and then make a decision for the regular budget. But I would say that we should bring it down quite significantly partially because we've had quite a push for fixing the roads last year, and I think there was a lot of success, and I think the mayor is probably the one to hear any complaints about roads, but I don't think he's getting quite the same number of complaints as he did this time last year.
So let me jump in with that. The roads are the number one priority of the residents. I will say people are very happy about the road program from last year. There's no question about it. One of the downsides about the success of the road program is the people who live on roads that are not good are unhappy that their roads didn't also. The residents don't call to ask about whether we replaced the boilers in Borough Hall or whether we bought, but they don't, right? And so, that gets into the questions of what are our priorities, and our priorities should always be the things that face the residents the fastest. And the road is at the end of their driveway, and that's what matters to them. And, our residents, Susan and it's a good question you raised, Vanu, about the taxes and the collection level. And when I'm done with my little short monologue here, I think Susan should make a real short monologue to kind of answer that, where we are with the tax collections. I believe we need to focus on things that are important to the residents as priority one. But go ahead, Susan.
So, I do want to speak after Susan. Yeah.
We're not having any issue with our tax collections. We hardly had any taxes go to tax. So I think I had 5, and our collection rate is way over 90%. We had basically the same amount of delinquencies as we had last year. I don't have the numbers before me, but I know that the tax collection isn't a problem.
That's the past, Susan. We're talking about the future, and we don't know where things stand for the future. And the economy is still not going upwards. It's still staying stagnant. So that affects our residents from a tax point of view, and so we don't know if that'll drop in the coming year. But having said that, I also think that we can drop this amount down, and then for the regular budget, I'd like to see where we had the red, green, and yellow of the roads presented to us 2 years ago. We haven't gotten an update. I'd like to see an update before we commit more and see where things are. I don't think we should just because we did it last year that we should do it this year. Seems like the wrong approach to me.
Okay, so I'm sorry.
Dan, hold on. Let Dan had his hand up next.
Update on the roads would be we're still 15 years behind. That's it.
Say that again, Dan.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you blacked out a little bit there, so just say it again.
According to that study 2 years ago, we were 15 years behind. So, we're still behind.
I'd like to still see an update because I think a lot of things have changed with the roads from 2 years ago.
Well, but to your point about the list, Vanu, I'm answering it because you asked the question. We're not presenting a list of which roads to be paved. Mazer is putting together the suggestions for the council to review and approve. This is a dollar amount. And, we're trying to get the road program, we did it last year, moved up to the earlier part of the year rather than, the third and the fourth quarter. So frankly, the residents get to take advantage of the newly paved roads over the summertime, rather than running up right against Thanksgiving.
Sure, understood. I understand the rationale. I'm just saying that I think the 1.5 is a very large lift to put into a temporary capital program. That's all. And looking at some of the other items, I'm not sure why the downtown revitalization plan is already included in this when we haven't had a discussion. We haven't, agreed on, what we're doing with regard to that. I would ask that be taken out. I think the others are fine, but I'd still like to hear what all the other items are.
Okay, so Susan, you've gone down the list of everything?
Well, yes, I did. And really the game plan, though, was to get the roads going.
Yeah.
And the rest of the items should be reviewed to see, and I guess you could poll the governing body to see what everybody feels is most important. Because if we don't get a temporary capital plan in for the next meeting, you're talking about this not getting done until February 23rd being introduced, and then possibly then we're going into March, and then you might not be able to start the road program until April, May, and then that defeats the purpose of doing this.
Yeah. So I mean, what I would say is there are items on here that are absolutely essential, and maybe we should even take us after I speak. Maybe Susan, I'm going to ask you to explain something about the meaning of temporary capital budget versus what Councilman Menon commented on in terms of emergency budgets. These are items that we have that the council has discussed. In some cases, argued over. In some cases, have been hanging around for 2 years now, like the shed demolition that we've gone around kind of in a couple of circles on. Friendly way, but they've been in circles, and it's kind of like why wait? These aren't pie in the sky concepts we're talking about here. These are all things that different council members here support. Some of them support all of them. Some of them support some of them. And I think Susan, it's kind of like if we're going to do it, let's get it done. That's my view. Susan, can you talk a little bit about the issue of a temporary budget versus an emergency budget, and if and how they're different and what that means, please?
Okay, so really it's a temporary capital budget, and then there's the regular capital budget, okay? The regular capital budget would be introduced at the time the operating budget is. It doesn't have to be, but that's what we do. This is solely for the purpose. When I first started in Tenafly, we didn't do a temporary capital budget at all. We waited. But the methodology here that the governing body wanted was that we become nearly first on the list for the Riverside Co-op to get the roads done. And with that, now's the time to add the other essential items. So we get on the road program for the county. Then we add the other essential items. So I spoke to Mike Cassidy. He needs the air stripper for the Borough Hall boilers. The backup generator for the sewage pump station is now. We need it now. That's my understanding. I mean, if he has another capital list that's much, much bigger than this. There's only 2 items now from DPW on this list, and those are essential items. Then you have the roads. So the governing body really needs to decide, okay, I don't think there's any room to cut back on the second phase of Hudson. That was discussed with Mazer in detail. The only place to draw back probably is if you're not going to do more, the 1.5 is the road. And then the COVID inspection, Mazer told me that we need 150 for this year based on, I think it was a state letter that they receive about getting the culverts done. The downtown revitalization plan, I know that the governing body's been talking about, this plan for quite some time. You have to decide on if you want it done now or down the road. The earliest this would be done, if you don't put it in now, would be later this year, June, July. Then you spoke about the shed demolition. Same thing. Anything that you don't put now, we don't want to do multiple capital ordinances. It costs money to do that. Bond counsel, auditors, time. It wastes money. So what you have to do is really try to plan. And these were the things based on previous discussions from multiple members of the governing body that were important, and department heads that I pulled from the regular capital that would be introduced in May and put them on a temporary capital. So perhaps the governing body needs to go line by line to determine, take a poll to determine what would be advisable to put into the February 9th meeting. Otherwise, I don't see the point in doing a temporary plan and just wait till we introduce later.
Mayor?
Yes. Go ahead, Lauren.
Susan, that's exactly what I was going to say. Thank you so much. I do not feel like this has been vetted well enough by council. I would like to have a discussion line by line as we do in budget. I know that the DPW committee, which is in charge of the road program with Mazer, has not had this discussion on the amount that should go into this line item, nor have we gotten any information from our engineer as to the suggested roads additionally to the Hudson Street grant. So I do think it's very premature to just throw this number up. I would like the opportunity to discuss that very large sum of taxpayer money for roads. I agree roads need to be a priority, but it doesn't always have to be temporary budget. What I would like to propose to the council is that we start at the first item and we vote on each one right now.
Council members want to do
Agree.
Jeff?
I agree.
Jeff, your hand was up.
I generally agree. I just want to add my thoughts up before we start discussion of, one of the things that Susan said, the word that rings in my ear is essential. And, when we go down this item by item, it is what's essential. Otherwise, I'm concerned about why even bother having a capital budget discussion in a couple of weeks, literally during our budget, if we're going to selectively take certain capital items and move them to here, then we're really going to. The problem will become we're not going to be able to consider things at the same time, and that will shift priority. This actually will get higher priorities by making this list. And there are items that have been on the general capital budget for years that we've put off. They're not on this list. Should they be? So I really think that the key word is essential, and that if it's not essential, then it should take its place when we discuss the rest of the capital budget. I do understand that roads we want to get a jump on, and we can discuss the number. I understand that even with the the generator, backup generator for the sewage pump station that went out during a prior storm, that was a potential disaster. And to wait a couple of months on that, and if we have a storm, we are literally up the creek, and we all know which creek we're referring to, sewage pump stations. That would not be good. Other items, if they're not essential, then they should take their place, no matter how much they've been discussed. We have items that have been discussed for a long time. The recycling, which thank goodness we're finally rolling out, we had discussions about that for a couple of years, and we logically split the cost of that. But some of these items, you have to just ask, will a month or two or three even, will that be critical, essential to the town in terms of making a difference? Or if it's a good idea now, won't it be a good idea when we discuss the overall capital budget and weigh each and every item in the budget that's not essential at the same time so we can really prioritize everything? I mean, that's what we keep talking about, teamwork. That's what we need to be able to do as a team.
Adam, then Lauren.
So maybe I just missed it. Again, is it by statute that it's essential, or I heard that the something that we know we're going to do, why don't we do them anyway? We all agreed to certain things. So again, I don't want to, maybe I missed the word. Is that the concept that the temporary capital budget is only by statute for essential items? Or it's, again, I think the mayor mentioned it's for things that we have been discussing, we know we want to get a jump on, and take action against.
It may not be by statute, and I'll leave that to the experts, but we as a council have to decide what are we putting with the overall capital discussion, because there's a lot of things in the capital budget that we have discussed and continue to discuss. So the question becomes, because someone wants to move something, should that get it jumped to a different budgetary discussion at a different time? And maybe something looks good, but when you compare it to how much money is available and we actually look at the capital, because we used to spend this number of $2.755 million is probably, and Susan can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what we used to spend on the entire capital budget. Then it went.
That partially goes to the issue. Go ahead, Susan.
Of roads.
We were spending around 2.5 a couple of years. Then we went up to like 3.5. Last year was 5 million. I guess what the governing body really needs to do, and Adam, just so you understand, because of the year we're in, I think the governing body needs to really say it's not a matter of the temporary plan being essential. It's basically the methodology, that's the mindset right now of what do we want to prioritize right now if we're going to do a temporary plan. So I think everybody, what I'm hearing is everybody agreed that you need the I know that we definitely need the sewage pump and we definitely need that air stripper. Now,
do line by line. Let's not discuss in broad strokes. Let's actually do line by line here.
Okay, that sounds good to me. I'll keep track.
I had a question.
Go ahead, Lauren.
This is a question for Susan. Susan, if we pass something tonight, so for example, if we pass a certain number on roads tonight, this will get 2 readings?
Yes, you'll introduce next. I'll have it ready for February 9th.
Because sorry,
you can amend it before the adoption.
Well, that's my question, because I do think we do not have sufficient information on the road program as we speak and sit here tonight.
I just want to double check with Wendy, because I haven't amended a capital ordinance and I don't remember how long. Wendy?
Well, tonight you're taking a consensus on what items you want to include in the ordinance. The ordinance is not being introduced tonight, so that if it's the way it's introduced on the 9th may not require amendment. If you are amending after it's introduced on the 9th, it requires another 10 days, I believe it is, after and hearing. So it would get carried for a 3rd meeting. It wouldn't get adopted at the 2nd reading. That would be the reading of the amendment, and then you'd carry it to the next meeting.
Thank you.
All right, so if there's no other comments from the council, it sounds like everyone we've got a consensus to go down the list to review the items. We'll start with the road and sidewalk improvements. We've got the 2nd phase of Hudson Street, $696,000, for which there is going to be grant money being returned to the borough.
Mayor?
Yes.
Sorry, did we talk about the first 3, or we're accepting the first 3?
Oh, no, I didn't accept anything. I was just starting on the wrong side.
Oh, okay.
We can start with the other side. I wasn't accepting anything.
Page 1.
Yeah, page one is
Yep.
the stripper, right?
Okay, so air stripper for Borough Hall boilers, $20,000. So let's go around do we have to go around the table, poll the council, Omar?
Wait, can we get information on each of these things? Can we
Sure.
just have a quick 2-second line from maybe Jimmy, Susan, or Omar on what this item is and why it's on this temp budget?
Go ahead, guys.
Well, I don't know if Mike Cassidy's on, but the air stripper was put on from Mike Cassidy, and I have his entire capital plan for, for this year, and that was the only two items out of many that he said he needs right away. So I don't even know what an air stripper is. So I need help there. I do know what the generator is for the sewage pump, but I don't know what that is.
I really trust, we hired, we're so lucky. So many of our leads now, this team has hired. I trust DPW Director Cassidy. If again, this is a matter of timing. If this is what we need, I got to respect and trust him. And I trust Susan. Susan's incredibly frugal. Susan, what's the appropriate word?
Fiscally conservative.
Fiscally conservative. I don't think you're allowed to say
Fiscally
that.
conservative.
I think, I trust the team. Yeah, perfect. There you go. I trust the team. So I'm
So my limited knowledge of the air strippers are there because we just spent the money we did on the 4 new boilers. The air strippers increase the lifespan and I don't know, I can't answer all the technical questions, but I do understand that it increases the lifespan of the boilers, having to do with some sort of filtering system in the boilers.
Want to call a vote on it?
Yeah, sure. We'll go around go ahead, Omar.
Okay, so for the air stripper for Borough Hall boilers, Councilmember Dayton,
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Menon,
Yes.
Councilmember Michaels,
yes.
Councilmember Dr. O'Connor,
Yes.
Councilmember Park.
Yes.
Okay, so next on the agenda is the backup generator for the sewage pump station for $250,000. And what we're doing right now is renting the backup generator. Susan would know the cost. I don't know off the top of my head the cost of that. I think it's about $2,000 a month, Susan.
Oh, you know what? I don't really remember the cost because there was something going on with another pump too. So that I might mix up with this, so I don't want to misspeak. But this
So let me give the council a little explanation of what's going on with the backup generator. So the Richard Street pumping station serves approximately 600 homes, approximately 300 in Cresskill and 300 in Tenafly. And yes, Cresskill does reimburse us for their share of the cost of maintaining this pumping station. And when this pumping station, the pumps failed during one of our recent storms, the backup generator kicked in because there was a blackout, so the pumps failed. The backup generator kicked in, and then shortly thereafter, the backup generator failed. Luckily, down the DPW, we have what's called a bypass pump, and we brought the bypass pump up to Richard Street so that we were able to bypass the existing pumping mechanisms. And in order to run that bypass pump, we also had to rent another electric generator from someone else. So this backup generator solves all those problems of all the emergency procedures we have to do in order to make this work.
Call the vote.
Call the vote, Omar.
Oh, can I just say, I think there's a spelling mistake on the actual budget. It says sewerage. Seems to be sewage.
We'll, so noted. We'll blame that one on Wendy.
All right.
Sure, I'll take the blame, but I do believe it actually might be sewerage.
Oh, is it? Okay, my bad. I'm sorry.
All right.
It might be.
Omar.
Okay. Councilmember Dayton,
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Menon,
Yes.
Councilmember Michaels,
Yes.
Councilmember Dr. O'Connor,
Yes.
Councilmember Park.
Yes.
Okay, next item is the tree truck.
No, scratch
To
that,
that,
Mayor. Scratch it.
Pardon me?
We don't need that one. I could
He's
put it in a
scrapping
different
it.
ordinance.
yeah,
Wonderful. We just
Sounds out.
saved $15,000.
yeah, I was just going to say that we had a discussion with Mike Cassidy. This is to the thing about trust our heads. He had put that on there, but it turns out we actually have the money to cover that. We don't need it in the budget, so I guess there's a sort of Reagan-esque trust but verify, and so the verification saved us $15,000, and I called this afternoon.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Susan, for the help with that.
Thank you,
Thank
Jeff.
you.
Okay, next item, 2020 DOT second phase Hudson Street, 696,000. Susan, what will the amount of the grant money being returned to the borough so the council understands the net number ultimately here?
I think it's a little more than a couple $100,000, but when I really just got this number from Andy Hippolyte from Mazer, and then we'll have to look into the exact amount. But you have to fully appropriate the whole amount right now because we don't know exactly when the grant money will come in. It'll be written.
So you think the return?
Though.
You think the grant is worth about $200,000? Is that what you're saying?
You know, I think it's worth. I don't know if I'm mixing this up with another one, but I remember seeing a number of like 212,000. But it could be for a different road program. It could be for the 2021 one. So I would have to
grant, and we get one. We're lucky to get one, and we've been working on Hudson Street, excuse me. The key to this being in the temporary budget now, and Jeff, I know you asked this question, whether it's essential. To get this grant done and to have the timing coordinated with what I will present later as the Fister's Pond project, we need to get it scheduled early, which means that they need to come early enough to do the mill pave and curbing. Then we hopefully will do the Fister's Pond with the trucking on Hudson, and then afterward do the actual paving of the finished asphalt after that. So the timing here on Hudson Street is very vital to get in on right on that beginning so that we can get that coordination done. I will present this again later in the meeting when I talk about Fister's, but that is why it's on the temporary budget.
Yeah, that's very clearly explained, Councilwoman Dayton. So that makes a lot of sense that it's in this budget.
Okay, so can we poll the council, please? Omar.
Councilmember Dayton,
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Menon,
No.
Councilmember Michaels,
Yes.
Councilmember Dr. O'Connor,
Yes.
Councilmember Park.
Yes.
Sorry. Omar, yeah, that was supposed to be a yes. I was thinking of something else. That was supposed to be a yes.
Change.
Okay.
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 Do you want to I was going to say, do you want to do the roads last and we'll go down the other items first? Or you want to do the roads now?
Let's just go in order. Let's go in order, because then we'll get more confused. Okay, road resurfacing town-wide, $1.5 million. Let's poll the council.
Okay. Councilmember Dayton?
So I would like to actually have a discussion before the poll because
I think we should.
I think that the DPW committee hasn't even discussed this.
I agree. Yeah.
As a committee with Mazer and our town. We don't have roads tagged and picked for this year. I know I personally have been driving around, taking notes of the road repairs on various roads. Actually, today I was off in Knickerbocker and driving around. So I would like to take a step back on this one. I personally think that the committee should meet, we should try to get a meeting this week and see. This is a very large number, 1.5 million, which unfortunately in this very tight budget might be the total budget we spend instead of adding to this later. I do agree we need to jump on this, so I don't want to leave this as a nothing. I think we need a sense of how much we're going to spend this year compared to the other rest of the budget, though. It's a hard place to be in. What does everyone else think?
Vanu, then Adam.
Yeah, I think Council President Dayton echoed exactly what I was saying earlier on, that we should apportion a certain amount to this, and then we can decide with the full budget how we want to apportion whatever else we want to do. So, I mean, my proposal would be about 500,000, rather than the full than 1.5 million.
Councilman Michaels, you had your hand up next.
Yeah, just two clarifying questions. So on top of the 1.5 here, I see, and again, just the first cut of the budget at another looks like $750,000. So 2.25. So just my clarifying question is, so last year again we did about 3 million, right? And for the council, the thought is it's a rhetorical question. How much do we think we're going to spend, and do we think we're going to spend actually less than 1.5 million? At which point, yes, this 1.5 might not be right. And then the second clarifying question is just by not appropriating the full 1.5, does that slow down something later down in the path? Meaning, if we undo, right? So those would be my two clarifying ones. That one, I think we're going to spend even less with the plan to spend more than 2. Proposal to spend more than 2. Do we think we're going to spend even less than 1.5? And then 2, the recognition that if we don't do the 1.5, it is going to slow other things down later on, which I wouldn't want to do.
What do you recommend? What are you thinking?
Again, I think, again, they're for clarifying questions. I think the 1.5 is fine if we believe that it's likely we're going to actually spend even more than that, and we know that if we don't do the 1.5 now for something that we know we're going to spend anyway, it's going to slow down things later. To all the comments of, I would much rather be driving on nice roads in the summer. We get better rates if we do it earlier. We get first, we get ahead of the line. There's a possibility if we finish earlier, maybe we could, do 1 or 2 more roads later on. If we push everything later, lose that ability. So again, as long as, this council, we feel that we're going to spend at least 1.5, and it's going to hurt us if we don't do it, I would do the full 1.5 now. Always decide on the 750,000 in 2 months when we look at the full capital budget.
Can we hear from Susan on how this fits in with what she's been working on?
Susan, go ahead.
So I did put it high intentionally because I knew we were going to discuss it, because I know roads have been a priority. But what you could do is lower this number for now, just to get the real priority roads in place with the Riverside Co-op, and then if you need to, add other roads in the next capital ordinance. So maybe you want to put somewhere between 750,000 and $1 million into this plan.
So how does the council feel about that as a compromise, using Susan's suggested number?
750,000, that's half of it, right? And you're saying that's enough to get you through this temporary time, Susan, just so I understand.
Well, I think Jimmy will have to go and meet with Riverside Co-op, and the reason why we do this, we don't have to do the town-wide. If you're okay with waiting to do the roads, we don't have to put this number in right now, but just know that you're not going to be able to do any roads until at least the end of May would be the earliest.
Why would we want to wait, guys?
But putting in some of the money now allows us to proceed, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe make this number no more than $1 million right now, and take out 500,000. And if you have money left, or make it 750, Because at one time, sometimes I think our road program was 1.2 million, 1.3. But I know we did that paving study, and I think we wanted to take an aggressive approach, but maybe this year we will be less aggressive, contingent upon what's going on with COVID and our operating budget and all the other factors that will go into this year's operating and capital plan. That has to be decided by you. So I would say no less than 750 and no more than $1 million.
Lauren, go ahead.
So I just want to remind everyone, part of this program is $250,000 for micro surfacing on not red roads that we do each year. And so that money, again, will be separate and distinct for orange and yellow and green roads to maintain. That's not new road resurfacing. And so as we look to it, I do think 750 is actually low. If you then take out the 250 of the rest of the roads, and for 500, I don't know how many red roads we can get. Keep in mind, what did we spend last year? 3 million. I think we only got 10 roads done with 3. Keep in mind, it also depends on how long the roads are and what the price of asphalt is. But this doesn't get us very far. Adam, I've been thinking about your point. If we are going to do a road program and spend it later, we should put a road program in now. The issue is, I mean, we have no information and haven't really met as a DPW committee with Mazer on this. It really is difficult to know what roads and how much they cost. Usually they give us a breakdown of the cost of the roads, and we're able to say, we really need, Old Smith done, for example, and it costs X amount, and we're able to pick and choose the major roads that we want to work on and then see what that cost is. This is really just in the dark.
Can I interject there?
So let me just jump. Hold on a second, Susan. Let me jump in about the cost of the roads. Roads cost to fully pave a road, to repave a road, is $600,000 a mile. Doesn't make a difference which roads you decide to pave. So whether you want to pave Oak or Elm or both of them, your per mile, your per foot cost will be exactly the same. So so if we're budgeting $1 million, quick math is, what does that get us? 1.4 miles of roads. Now, so if we put a list together that winds up adding up to $3 million, but the council doesn't want to spend $3 million at all, doesn't matter what the list of roads is. So first, we really need to get the number down that the council is comfortable, investing in roads. And then, Mazer is preparing recommendations for the DPW committee, which can be accepted, ignored, edited, at the council's pleasure. Venu, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, before I say anything, I just wanted to know if Jimmy had anything to suggest, because I saw him pop up on the screen.
Thank you. The only thing I would add is just exactly what the mayor just mentioned, is giving the dollar amount to work it with to the committee, and then they could come back with a list. And as the mayor said, it could be edited, modified, however the council sees fit. But I think it would be good to give them the parameter, the dollar number parameter to work within, and then give a suggested list.
Yeah, I think I think the problem with doing that is without having the complete budget picture, it's sometimes hard to just pick something out of a hat and say what we're comfortable with. I think we need to know more about what the budget is going to look like. So, I mean, that's why, an initial amount is fine. I said 500. I mean, I understand, Susan's recommendation of 750. That's fine. But, I think we start off with a certain amount that allows us to get some emergency roads early on. But then we have to struggle with what the rest of the budget is.
All right. So,
Susan,
go ahead, Susan. Then let's.
Dan's been trying to speak. Dan's been trying to speak.
Oh, sorry. Dan, go first, please. Dan, then Susan.
just to add to everyone's comment, I don't think the DPW committee should be selecting the roads. I think it should be coming from the engineer. There's no way a council person is selecting a road.
Oh, they do.
Okay.
The Mazer gives the roads. We go take a look at them. But
No,
usually
we
they
pick
give like a
the
list of
list is
20.
no, 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 no. The list is right. It's ordered by priority, and then the number decides which roads get done. There's no way you're going to politicize which roads get done. No council person
Okay.
should ever pick a road, ever.
Dan, that's not what we meant. We are waiting on Mazer to get that list. That's exactly right. Mazer gives us.
But that's
the list.
irrelevant because the number decides which roads get done. The priority list doesn't matter what the name of the road is. It's how far deep the list you get with the number we decide on.
Well, sometimes the top 10 roads.
All right, so
One second, Susan. I just want to respond to this. 1 second, Susan. The top 10 roads might each be $1 million
Susan, hold on.
each. And so the DPW committee does have a discussion that says we're going to pick 2 at this price and 2 at this price and 2 at this price. It is discussed amongst the committee. I just want to be clear on that.
Okay.
Go ahead, Susan. And Susan,
okay,
maybe. Go ahead.
Okay, you have to pick a number so that there's a parameter for Mazer to work with. And then the governing body can tweak the roads as they deem fit. So we can't just say, tell us what roads we're going to do or give them the roads. They need to have some type of a budget. Otherwise,
Okay, so Susan, let's cut to the chase. And what's your recommended budget number for this? Clearly, the council doesn't want to do 1.5. We've heard a couple of numbers. What are you recommending?
I think I'm looking at, what's going to happen later. We're going to do two DOTs, 20 and 21. That'll be 700, another 500. Then we're going to do the road resurfacing, which is up in the air right now. We'll probably do micro surfacing for another 250. So I would say we could take a conservative approach right now, do 750,000, and then later, if we have some room, do more. But last year we did 2 million altogether, just so you know.
Okay, so
Susan,
Susan's
750 is the number you should work with, I think.
okay. So 750 is Susan's recommendation for new, and then we're going to poll the council.
Right, and then just understand that it's actually 750 plus the 700. So it's 1450 is the total roads program in the temporary capital budget.
That's correct, when you add it together like that.
Yeah, and we should add it together because that's what it is.
Okay, so Omar, can you please poll the council?
What is the question? Sorry, 750?
Question is
50 for road resurfacing.
750,000 for the road resurfacing townwide.
Okay. Councilmember Dayton?
I would like to actually have $1 million, so I'm going to say no.
So
I think
okay.
750 is too low. I would go with $1 million. I wouldn't go 1.5. I think we know we're going to spend $1 million. We should get on priority, like Adam said.
I'd go with $1 million too. If there's someone else that thinks it's $1 million, why don't we vote on $1 million? I don't know if there's anyone else that would vote on $1 million.
No,
I'm
750.
$1 million, but I know.
How much, Jeff?
I actually was thinking of $1 million.
Okay, so let's vote on $1 million, please.
All right, so let's, so the question is $1 million for road resurfacing townwide. Yes or no?
Councilmember Dayton?
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman?
Yes.
Councilmember Menon?
Yeah, that's fine.
Councilmember Michaels?
Yes.
Councilmember Dr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Councilmember Park?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. The next item are the culvert inspections around town. Questions?
Pretty critical, right?
The culvert inspections?
Culvert inspections have been mentioned for like all the time I've ever been on. I never seen some laughing.
What we've got with culvert inspections, we've got multiple culverts around town where the concrete foundations and footings are starting to show through, because I'm not an alarmist. I'm not going to say something's in imminent danger of collapsing. That's because then I would say that. But what's happening is they're deteriorating. You know, a lot of these things were built, by Franklin Roosevelt's administration. We've all seen the signs. So it's another question of infrastructure that needs to be addressed. And there you have it. And that is the estimate. Susan, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, I asked Nathan, I believe they get some kind of notification as to which covert inspections need to be done. So I asked him what number is the estimate. This is the number he gave me. So this comes directly from the engineer.
Any questions from the council, or are we ready to vote on this one? Okay, Omar, please poll the council members.
Councilmember Dayton,
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Menon,
Yes.
Councilmember Michaels,
Yes.
Councilmember Dr. O'Connor,
Yes.
Councilmember Park.
Yes.
Well, everyone likes culverts. That's wonderful. Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is the agenda downtown revitalization plan for 100,000 to get this kick-started and off. Questions from the council? Okay.
I think it's just going to go back to this issue of what goes on a temporary budget versus what goes on our capital budget and operating budget discussions later. Am I wrong? Because I know that's what seems
I
to be
guess
kicking around.
Well, I think my point of view is, so we voted on this last month
We
to
didn't.
do this.
We didn't.
We did. We agreed as a council. It's the minutes that you're going to approve in a little bit. We agreed as a council that this is what we're doing.
Was that in open in the public meeting?
Yes.
No, in the public meeting or in the work session.
Why don't we go back to the minutes and take a
To
look?
be considered.
We agreed. We
Yeah,
agreed.
we agreed to do this.
We agreed to do it. So one, we agreed to do this. The second is, again, the 100,000 is looking at the current budget is whopping 1.4% of the total budget. So if we're gonna, it's a very small piece. Third, actually it is urgent. Actually, to Councilman Grossman's point of a good idea today is a good idea to, tomorrow or next month or next quarter. I spoke to 3 different local businesses today, and every day is one more day that they need help. So I would argue it is critical. And then the fourth, actually you usually have 3, but the fourth is, to my understanding, again, council to make, clarify for me, to put $100,000 in doesn't mean we have to spend 100,000. We have to just get the RFQ out. We could again decide not to even do it, right? Select anybody. So putting this in allows us to send out the RFQ. That's where the urgency is. It doesn't mandate that you have to spend $100,000 straight.
I don't think you have to put this in a temporary budget to get the RFQ. Am I right? Someone clarify that?
No.
Can we have Susan? Yeah, Susan, speak to that issue.
Yeah, you cannot, the funding must be in place in order for us to do the RFQ.
It did, Julie, it did change from last time.
Yeah,
I learned it too.
Certify that the funds are available.
So I just want to say, thank you, Susan. I just want to say here, we've been, I just lost my iPad there. Sorry, guys. As a council, multiple governing bodies, not just this governing, and multiple groups of us have been talking about the downtown for 12 years now and beyond that. I'm just going with the time I've been awake, for the past 12 years. And we've tried different things, and many people have made valiant efforts to try different things. And, we all hope and pray that somehow the downtown's going to improve, whether it's traffic patterns, parking, dining, lighting, whatever it might be. But we really have to kind of make the investment to really think it through clearly and have the resources and professionals available to help us with this, because we all know the retail and services landscape has changed dramatically. And I think we need to get ahead of it. And it's like many things, we have discussed it a lot over the past decade, and we really need to kind of do something different in order to make something different happen. And I think there's a lot of energy in the community, whether it's lasagnas or outside dining, whatever, lights, fixing sidewalks, that's going on with downtown right now. And I think we need to continue pushing this forward, which is why I think I would like to see, I would ask that this being the temporary budget, because I would rather get ahead of it in a year now than wait later. And to Susan's point, we need to have the money appropriated in order to even do the RFQ. It doesn't mean we even accept the RFQs if it turns out the council doesn't like any of it. Therefore, none of the money will get spent. It's almost like a placeholder. But that's my piece. Council members? Jeff?
Yeah, so look, we agreed to have a resolution. That's what we agreed to. We agreed to a resolution. There was no resolution in the work session. So work sessions are just that. They're not votes. They certainly warrant discussion, and that's what we're doing. But then to say, okay, and it was even discussed about 100,000, and there was some concern about that amount. I have expressed before that 10 years from now, because this is not a short-term plan. To the mayor's point, I understand that we have a lot of businesses that want a lot of things done quickly. This is not one of those things that gets done quickly. This is long-term planning. And in 2031, 10 years from now, nobody's going to be critical of this council saying, you know, you should have rushed into it. You should have had the RFQ by May. Why was it September? We need to proceed deliberatively. We had some disagreement, clear disagreement, when we did discuss at the last meeting as to what exactly this is. We had one council member who was saying this is, and I'm not even talking about language, who made a very, very good point that this is a downtown revitalization plan. I had another council member very, very adamantly explain that no, this is a budget priority plan. One saying that this is inherent to what the planning board does, and the planning board does need, if it's a revitalization plan, they do need to be intimately involved, because they do, for example, the historic overlay, even though we have a historic preservation committee. I had another council member saying, no, the planning board is really tangential. So unless we understand what we are creating, to sit here and say we can't have that discussion, we've got to rush the RFQ, this is not what I consider exigent. And I apologize if there was anything, and I don't think I have ever given the impression I felt that way. I have said this repeatedly. I don't think there's any reason to pull this from the regular capital budget discussion and discuss it with so many other things. I mean, Councilwoman Dayton has talked about a median for longer than we've talked about this, and that certainly should be on equal footing in our discussion. And this puts things not on equal footing, and that's where I am uncomfortable. I've said my piece. You know how I feel about. I may even ultimately be supportive of this, but only in the context of all capital items. And to the point before about, Susan was asked about revenue coming in. I know she talked about our tax revenue is good. What we didn't ask and what we need to think about is, for example, we get revenue from hotel taxes, which is way down this year. The Clinton Inn certainly is not paying what they've paid in past years in taxes. From the courts, where we have gotten large revenues from people who go speeding through our town, those revenues are way down. So while our property tax revenue may not be off, we do have other areas of revenue that are way off. And we do need to be cognizant of that. And I do want to look at these items in the context of the entire capital budget. So that's just how I feel. That's only a few weeks down the road. It's not like we're putting this off a year or even 3 or 4 months.
Lauren, you had your hand up first. Thank you, Jeff.
That was well said. I just wanted to respond to one of the things. So I agree that we do need to get a consistent viewpoint of what this document will be, but it's not just one thing. I think it can be used for many. You know, I do think it is deliberate for our council. I do think it's a budgeting and forecasting tool. I do think it's a revitalization plan for our downtown and our businesses. I do think it's a planning thing so that maybe my median isn't, and parking lot plans are not just randomly done, but they're logically planned, you know, with projections and budgeting. So for me, I do think that we have the opportunity to hammer that all out. This vote right now is to get a funding source. It's just to get the funding source. So we can take as long as we want to get the RFQ out, but this allows a funding source to be here for the next 5 months. And so we can take the 5 months, Jeff, to your point of, you know, pushing it to September, and maybe we need to. And obviously more conversation needs to be had. But to me, to not have the funding source and then not get the funding source released till May, I think that does put us at a disadvantage if this is something we want as a goal. I know in the conversations we've had, the downtown has been, you know, one of the main things. These capital projects and engineering projects, one of the main things that are in conflict. We don't know which to prioritize. It's difficult for us to say, should we budget for a parking lot? Should we budget for a green space? Should we budget for a batting cage? Whatever it is. And it's wonderful that we all have these projects. What this type of plan does is it does allow all of this to be discussed in a logical, coherent way by a professional and not me or Adam or Vinu or whoever. So that way it gives us a framework to work all those ideas in. It is a live document. It is not stagnant in time. Whatever we decide to do now, 5 years from now, a council can change that and ask, hey, we now want to work on, you know, connectivity and walkways, whatever it is. The next person may want signage. So it is a working document. I know other communities have used it to their benefit and have really changed themselves. For me, to put a funding source right now in the temporary capital makes sense. And it will need further discussion for an RFQ. And absolutely, Jeff, you, the planning board, Adam, whoever wants to discuss it should have that opportunity. I don't think this eliminates that. I think this just allows us in the next 5 months, you know, from January to May, if we get to the place where we're all comfortable, we can then do the RFQ.
Vanu, then Jeff, please.
Yeah, I mean, first off, I just wanted to say I completely agreed with all of Jeff's comments. I mean, it was just masterfully stated. But I did, you know, I do disagree that if we put in the 100,000 now, then we're going to have the patience to wait for 5 months to you know, put out an RFQ and have a discussion. There will be no discussion. It'll be basically a stamp to do what we want tomorrow. And there are going to be people that will send out an RFQ tomorrow as soon as it's in. And we should be evaluating this in the context of everything else that we are looking to do this year. And again, with the understanding that you know, we may not have the full you know, funding source that we would otherwise have had if it was a year ago or 2 years ago. So I think we need to kind of have a look at it and you know, not fool ourselves into thinking that, hey, you know, we can approve it today and then we'll talk about it for the next 5 months. That's not how things work in this particular case. So
I just want to, before I'm sorry, Vanu, are you done?
No, I'm done. Thank you.
Before Jeff goes, I just want to say, I mean, to the point of spending money, I mean, Susan and I, we're not spending any money unless the council approves it. I mean, it just doesn't, we don't hire, you know, one part-time seasonal person that's in the budget unless we come to the council to get the okay. So I don't think anyone should walk away here saying, you know, that if this council votes yes tonight, that Susan and I are writing a check with my signature on it tomorrow afternoon. That's not how this works.
No, that's not what I mean. But I'm saying that somebody will have an RFQ ready to go, and you'll come to the council tomorrow and say we have a resolution and or ordinance that says we want to do this, and then you know there'll be a rush a rush to judgment to some extent, rather than a measured discussion about the subject. That's my point. Is once the money's there, there's the temptation to use it.
Jeff?
All right, so I mean, one of the things that we're talking about is that it's really about a 3-month delay between, because you have 2 ordinance readings. It's a bond ordinance. It requires 2 readings like any other ordinance. Then the other would just be about 3 months later. So if it's a good idea now, it's a good idea 3 months from now. The thing I forgot to say before is that 3 months.
I apologize, Jeff.
Hey,
Businesses would disagree with you, but go on.
Well,
That's okay.
You can disagree. So make it 4 months, okay? We'll make it 4 months difference. Because really by the time everything's done, that's about what it is. So that 4 months, this is really going to impact the 2022 budget year, a year from now. I don't see that 4 months as being detrimental, and that's really what I'm looking at, to our ability to put this in place and have some suggestions for the 2022 budget. Because it's not as if they're going to be able, whoever gets the RFQ, to make a suggestion and that we're going to be able to implement it in October. We won't be able to implement it until next year, and hopefully not in a temporary capital budget, but in a full capital budget discussion, which will be next March. So we do need to think that that's the realistic time frame we're aiming for the first impact of this, no matter what we do.
So I'm gonna go ahead.
I won't go through it.
Councilman
I respectfully disagree. You're thinking it has to be budget. Public private partnership could decide, you know something, I believe in town, and privately someone decides they want to send out a survey and they want to put up the $10,000. I'm totally making this up. They can do it. So I think it's a great example of, I need us all to think a bit broader, a bit differently from the past. And I know for a fact that it is incorrect that nothing will get done in 2020. It's a mere fact. Things can get done that doesn't have to go through, through the council. So just a clarifying point.
Well, if it doesn't have to go through the council, then we don't really need to even.
Sorry, it doesn't. I apologize. It doesn't need council. It doesn't need council budgets. Doesn't need budgeting for it.
And if someone wants to do a survey, they are more than welcome to do it.
It was a silly example, Councilman. It's okay. Let's agree to disagree. We're good.
All right.
So I'm just going to fall back on Susan's explanation when we began this discussion, that we can't send out. This is basically identifying a funding source. We can send out an RFQ. Whether the RFQ is done, as Manu mentioned, tomorrow or 4 months from now, really, isn't the issue here. It's just that we can't do one without the funding source. It's not about spending the money. The money might not be spent this year. Who knows? But I'm just repeating myself, saying we've been talking about this for years. It's one of our priorities overall. And I think it's important to the downtown. It's important to the stores downtown and the residents. So I hope the council considers moving this forward. If there's no further discussion, I would ask Omar to please poll the council. Yes to do this, or no not to.
Okay. Councilmember Dayton?
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman?
No.
Councilmember Menon?
No.
Councilmember Michaels?
Yes.
Councilmember Dr. O'Connor?
No, not for the temporary.
Okay. Councilmember Park?
Yes.
Okay, so I have a tie.
So I'm going to vote yes.
Okay.
All right, so now someone can tell me if my parking lot or my median goes first.
That's a separate subject.
But
Okay.
I would propose, in accordance with what Jeff was saying, that we absolutely find some time to work on this and define what this should be before any RFQ goes out.
I don't think any RFQ will go out without the entire council reviewing it first. It's too important.
Again, so thank you so much for ultimately for this council agreeing to keep it in the temporary budget. We've sent out the RFQ multiple times. I'd be happy to sit down with anybody. I think, Jimmy also offered. He sent it, everyone's seen this RFQ multiple times. Anything that Jimmy could help you with, or myself, members, anybody at all. I've reviewed this with Councilman Grossman multiple times, in addition to the planning board chair, Wilmot. Anything I could do to help you guys, just let me know.
I want to just use the Adam segue to just say, and I have discussed the plan with Adam as well. But I just wanted to say that since as of late, I have been doing a lot more research about the electric vehicle charging stations, which has been, in fact, something that has been discussed for quite a while in our town. I just want to tell you, Adam, that when this RFQ is developed, that EV charging stations also be something that is definitely accounted for in any downtown plan, possibly.
Julie, I love
Okay.
that.
Thank you, Julie, for that. Let's move to the hazmat study for the recycling center shed demolition. Susan, if you don't know this one, I can fully explain that and the shed demolition if you'd like, if Michael's not on the call. Okay, so the hazmat, the sheds are the two temporary trailers that have been there, I don't know, 30 or 40 years, that the walls and the floors are collapsing, that need to be cleaned up. This goes hand in hand with the shed demolition of $4,000. And so the question may be, why are we spending $20,000 to do a hazmat study and only $4,000 to demolish it? It's because we have the equipment in the DPW to take it apart ourselves and put it in waste containers and have it hauled away, which is why it's relatively inexpensive. The hazmat study, of course, is to look at all the bad chemicals that may in fact be in there. We're required to do that by the state. Questions for council?
This one's for Jeff. Is this essential to do now?
Jeff?
It's not directed to me about it.
No. I'm saying that one's in support of your
directed to me.
idea.
I know, that's why I wasn't answering.
I know.
All right, so if there's no questions for the council, we can go around the table and poll the council. Omar.
Wait, Mayor, I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
Can you
Laura.
just explain the necessity to put it in the temporary budget?
It's there for years, empty and vacant. It's an eyesore. It's dangerous. If the council wants to wait, there's no emergency there. If the council wants to wait another 3 months, we certainly can wait on this. The building is not being used. And I believe, but don't quote me, that any electrical that was connected to it has been disconnected. And Jimmy, if you could be so kind as to confirm that with Mike Cassidy, that the utilities are in fact shut off, but doesn't represent a fire hazard.
Will do.
We're voting on both the hazmat study and the shed demolition.
They go together. It's one vote for both. You can't do one without the other. I mean, you could, but what would be the point?
11 o'clock is approaching. We're still on top.
Yes. So Omar, call the poll, yes or no for the hazmat and shed demolition.
Councilmember Dayton?
Yes, if it's going to be a dangerous condition, get it done now. Why wait?
Councilmember Grossman?
No, it's not an exigent situation.
Councilmember Menon?
No.
Councilmember Michaels?
Yes.
Councilmember Dr. O'Connor?
No.
Councilmember Park?
Yes.
Okay.
Are we tied again?
The mayor is getting his money's worth today. This town should be proud of our mayor.
Okay, so let's just get it done. I'm going to vote yes.
Yeah.
Mayor, if I may, the utilities have been disconnected.
Have been disconnected, okay.
Correct.
Future bonding, Susan, is that yours?
Yeah, so I built into the plan the bonding because it costs up to about $40,000 when we go out to bond. And I think that will probably go out to bond next year. So I want to put it in this year and next, and then our principal payments starting next year. The following year in 2023 will drop off by about $1 million. So next year would be a good year to go out to bond, and then you don't make your first principal payment until the following year. So I need to build in these costs so that we have something to, pay the Moody's and bond counsel and the auditors. So I'm putting 20 in this year and probably 20 next year. And it usually goes, just so you know, with the road program. Because what happens is you put in section 20 costs, which are anything related, they call them soft costs, to auditors, bond counsel, engineers. All those costs are lumped together. It's usually 15 to 20% of a road program. But
Okay,
that
Council.
15 to 20% is already included in the road, will be included in the road number. This will also be stuck in there, just so you know.
Okay, council members have questions for Susan on this? Okay, Omar, pull the council, please.
Okay. Councilmember Dayton?
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman?
Yes.
Councilmember Minden?
Yes.
Councilmember Michaels?
Yes.
Councilmember Dr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Councilmember Park?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Susan, any more questions about the temporary capital?
No, I think that's great. And I'll have it ready on the 9th.
So we're spending about $2,200,000. Is that accurate?
$2,260,000. Yeah, that's accurate.
That's huge. Okay.
All right, with the council's indulgence, we have a resident under correspondence, Beth Embinder. I'm going to kind of slip this conversation in right now regarding a food truck festival. Have all the council members had an opportunity to read this? And Beth is on the line here. Does anyone have any questions for Beth? How do they feel about moving this forward, pending further details? Questions, comments? Jeff, please.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you, Beth, for this. I'm a big fan of Project Graduation since my wife co-chaired it for I don't know how many years. But I know in the past there was something involving food truck that was held at the high school field, which is a much larger area than some of the places you've suggested and ties into the school. So I thought maybe that should be considered as an option because that's been used. It is Project Graduation. It involves the high school and could also use school facilities. I'm all for it. I'm just trying to think somewhere like Hyla Park is way too small, especially if by April the COVID situation has not gone away, which I doubt it will.
Well, to answer your question, Sunny, Hyler Park is Hyler Park doesn't work. It doesn't. It doesn't work.
Right.
On the properties, it's just a question of we make a percent. The food festival will make a percentage based upon alcohol will be sold. If you allow alcohol to be sold, a great percentage is made on the alcohol, which, and I believe that Just Jersey Fest, Allison from Jersey Fest is on, and she can speak to it, but all the proper, they file the proper permits and they also do all the checking and it's all closed in so that it's very, carefully checked. But I didn't know if we could do it on school grounds with alcohol.
All right, you may want to check with the school. There's also the option of, the part of the parking lot near there is pretty big, and that also allows for parking, restricted flow of people in. I'm just trying to because I always love Project Graduation fundraising and fully support it. I'm just trying to think of ways to make it work that will be easier. And even if you're talking the Roosevelt Commons, most of the Roosevelt Commons is not owned by the town. Most of it's board property. We actually are responsible for only a small portion.
What about Sunnyside? How about Sunnyside?
To Sunnyside?
Lauren, you're next.
Well, can I just, Sunnyside is always an option. Here's the problem. If you get any rain within about 3 or 4 days before it, you don't need food trucks, you'll need boat trucks, food boats, pontoons, because that field doesn't dry out.
I know.
And that's the big downside there. I think you had also said something about Walnut Park in there. Walnut, A, is small, and B, very residential neighborhood, kind of makes it hard for flow of traffic in and out. So that's why I was thinking the senior parking lot between the swim clubs as an option, or reaching out to the school. I just wanted to throw my 2 cents in.
The other option, I mean, I know that Jersey Fest, and I don't know, Allison, are you on? I don't know if she's on. Is that they wanted a place with grass, preferably. I mean, their first choice would be place with grass. So the senior parking lot, though, I think the senior parking lot is too far away. What about the other option? If Sunnyside wouldn't work, could we possibly do the middle school parking lot?
So that you'd have to check with the board. Also, Davis Johnson might, although I don't know about alcohol, that I'll leave to our lawyer and all about alcohol sales up at Davis Johnson, but I don't think it's permissible there.
And Davis Johnson would be too hilly, it doesn't work.
The bottom portion actually is pretty good, pretty flat. I was trying to remember, you said 20 plus high-end trucks. No, it wouldn't work for that many.
Can I jump in?
Just go ahead, Lauren. You get next. I was just going to throw out a Resco Park, but go ahead, Lauren.
Beth, thank you for spearheading this. I know Project Graduation does a fantastic job, and we wish you great success here. I will say that we have tirelessly worked to get our parks and playgrounds back in order. I'm going to say no to parking a whole lot of food trucks on top of the grass at Sunnyside, which we are constantly trying to pack with clay and new grass. I would not be for Davis Johnson, which we are trying to make a passive park of green space. My recommendation is to park the trucks on concrete. So like, for example, if you wanted Davis Johnson for the alcohol permit, you park the trucks in the parking lot spaces, and then you let the families spread out on the grass with blankets or whatever else it is. But I would maybe re-envision where you're parking the trucks. I think you'll be better, and I think that'll preserve our green spaces better.
To that point, Lauren, one of the options, just throwing options out there, would be if the trucks are on the street adjacent to the park, and perhaps the street is that section is closed for the day. Whatever that may mean is certainly an option.
Well, can I ask you, what about the municipal parking lot in Muni Field?
So could I back up? I just want to back up the questions for a second here. So the big question is the council in support of this whole project? That's the council members. Is everyone in support of the whole idea? And then it's just about finding the right location.
How many people roughly are going to, again, we tried to put this fall festival together and we had to cancel 3 days before, rightfully so. Roughly how many people attend Project Graduation? I have an 8th grader, so I'm not there yet.
I get it. No, and I've never done it. I've never done a food festival. I have Allison on from Just Jersey Fest, and she actually is the one who runs these throughout the state. So she's better to answer and better, more equipped. Allison, are you on?
I am. Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
Hi. Go ahead. Join in.
So again,
I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Yeah, so just specifically, and again, I think it's a joint between the two of you guys. Project Graduation last year, if there was a similar type event last year, how many people show up? Is it 100 people? Is it 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people? I think
So typically pre-COVID, I'll give pre-COVID and during COVID answers. Typically our events run from 11 to 7. They're an all-day thing. There's music, about 20 food trucks, kids' activities, a number of different things. And I'd say at any given time there might be 500 people there. We usually do 2 to 3 different genres of music, and that's usually what dictates the time frame people to come. We've found the average time frame is around an hour and a half to 2 hours that people stay. Now, we've had events that have had a lot more than 500 people at a time, and we've had events that have maybe had 100 people at a time. During COVID, obviously, a lot of events were canceled. The latter part of last year, when the governor's executive orders allowed 500 people at a time, we did run a number of festivals. They were different. In a lot of ways, a lot of protocols were added in, which I could get into if that's still the case. But we only at 2 festivals hit 500 people at one time. We had clickers and counters and all of that. So people were not going out the way they used to. So we're hoping with the vaccine to be on the other side that festivals return to normal, but we won't know for a few months.
Just clarifying, the governor's current order is 500 the limit now?
No, the current order is actually 25 people.
Right, that's what I was thinking. So I guess if, hopefully I'm optimistic that it always gets lifted every morning when I wake up, as long as we just make sure that, we're flexible. Again, we had this fall festival, we canceled it 3 days before. I assume that's the same strategy here. Let's hope to do it, but know that unfortunately we might have to cancel on it.
Cancel or reschedule. Yeah, I think anything. We're looking at the early part of the season for a date, but anything I think we have early, at least for the next month or two, till we see how the vaccine's working, if the numbers go down in New Jersey, I think everyone knows is tentative with the hopes of rescheduling.
Absolutely.
Vanu, you were next, and then Lauren.
So just logistically, I know the proposed date is April 24th. There is a street fair in Tenafly on Highwood and J Street for the weekend of the 24th and 25th. I don't know if that'll conflict in any way. They may be 2 different segments of the population, but there is a scheduled street fair, I think.
May I ask what's involved at your street fair?
That's the Chambers Street Fair, correct?
Right.
Right. So I think what's probably best is we connect you with the chamber so that you and the chamber can, kind of go over those issues directly.
Are we even allowing street fairs like that right now in the COVID time? I mean, is that something that we should even discuss?
Well, that's to Adam's point. It's like everything else. We plan it, and then if it has to be canceled, unfortunately, based on the situation on the ground, then so be it. And everyone kind of goes into that knowing the risks rather than not plan anything.
I truly hate to make Project Graduation in that realm and in like you might be canceled. I would love to be able to find a way where they can comfortably and socially distance somewhere outside, with a food truck. So let me ask Beth a couple questions, if you don't mind. Is there any way to do this in shifts? Is there any way to say, 100 families come from 7 to 8, and the next 100 families come from 8 to 9? I know that's not ideal, but I'm asking so that we're not facing any sort of cancellation issues.
The thing is, we run other sorts of festivals that involve alcohol and do have, like beer festivals. It's very hard to get people in their time window. Let me use a different event. Last year we did a mac and cheese festival. Actually, it was January 25th last year. And because we knew we were going to have a large turnout, this is pre-COVID, we sold 500 tickets per hour. But we had so many people that showed up in different time frames, even though their ticket had, what are you going to tell them? Their $5 ticket, they can't come in to get mac and cheese with their kids?
Yeah, that's not going to fly here. That's not going to be acceptable in our COVID situation right now. I'm not willing to put our public at risk and have those kind of loose guidelines. So that's not going to work for me, and I'm not going to approve something like that.
So let's
Okay.
just talk. Let's talk about the COVID again.
Wait, can Beth respond? Because I know.
Wait a second. Can I just want to clarify something very quickly? Is that this is just a fundraiser for project graduation? This is not actually project graduation. This is just a fundraiser for project graduation. So, you know, what we're trying to do is fundraising is really hard during this time of the year. I mean, during this year, and we need to raise money, and project graduation is huge. And you know, and it's something the kids really look forward to. So we're just trying. This was another means to not only to raise money, but also to create, you know, some type of camaraderie among the kids and the families and everything else. I mean, look, these kids have lost so much, and you know, being in a food truck is actually, the food truck festival seems to be a very safe COVID manner to do it. So that's why we were hoping to do it, but it's not related to project. It's just a means to raise money for project graduation. I just wanted the two issues to be separate.
No, thank you for clarifying. I mean, I fully support, you know, fundraising and project graduation, and have attended events in the past. And hopefully, you know, this will raise funds. And the food truck, you know, festival is a great concept. We just have to find the right space and find the right spacing for it.
So I have I'm sorry, Beth, go ahead. Then I have a
No, so
recommendation.
exactly, Lauren, I think that's exactly the case. Is what we need to discuss is, one is if the council, that's why we're bringing it to the council, is whether or not it's possible to do it, you know, because we've been, you know, we're spinning our wheels, and we think it's a great idea, and for the town, for everyone to get out there. But if it's not possible within the space, then we just need to know that it's not possible, which is very, you know, which we understand.
So it sounds to me, without putting words in anyone's mouth, that the council likes the idea, but there's a lot of details to be worked out. And I think rather than us try to work out the details in the context of this phone call, perhaps we have Beth communicate directly with our administrator, Jimmy Homsey, and then he can work out the details and make recommendations to Beth, and Jimmy can report back to the council, and the council can obviously approve or not approve whatever Jimmy is recommending, but that to let Beth and Jimmy work out the details offline.
That would
how does that sound to the council members?
I'm fine with that.
That's fine.
All right.
Can I also ask that Jimmy maybe loop in the Board of Ed, so that way, at least if we want to consider one of their spots, we're all on the same page?
That would be fabulous. I have to tell you, with the whole thing with project graduation, I mean, and the mayor was so helpful with when it came to the parade, the car parade last year. I mean, if the two could work together, it really, I mean, it was the best day, the car parade, and I mean, it was the town and the district working together, which really made a difference.
Should we? I'm sorry. I ironically sent a note earlier this afternoon, right before the meeting. Should we just put this, I don't know, in our next joint use meeting, exactly where the borough and the board come together? Why don't we just talk about it there, and you have all the decision makers there?
So because the joint use meeting basically happens quarterly, and so there'll be actually no time to get anything done if we wait for that. I think they can communicate. I understand. I respect your comment, Adam, but I think they can actually communicate directly with Jimmy and Cheryl Nardino at the Board of Ed, and Beth and her team. They can work together, you know, tomorrow to try to figure this out and report back to the council.
Mayor, if I may, briefly.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah, just talking with Beth earlier, and just, you know, figuring based on what the council was going to decide tonight, or, you know, give parameters to move forward. I would suggest, you know, what I would do is immediately talk with Beth tomorrow, and then make a group comprised of public work, you know, members of the public work staff, one or two people from PD, a couple of people from the Board of Ed, whoever they deem appropriate, and then Chamber, just to get the initial kind of understanding of the other event that's happening, and just have a discussion, get some, and then report back to the full mayor and council.
That sounds like a plan.
That sounds great.
So Beth and Jimmy, you have each other's contact information, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Beth, for bringing this forward
tonight.
Thank you.
Okay. Good night. Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Okay, going back to be considered shared service vaccine program. So I'd like to report to council conversations I've been having with Mayor Ziegler over in Leonia. And the purpose of this discussion, the goal of this discussion is to, at the end, get the council's approval, consensus to move forward, to put a shared services agreement together with Leonia. One has not been started yet. So we need to get that consensus tonight, hopefully. So what's going on is I will spare us all what's going on with the vaccine program in the state and the country. We all can witness that for ourselves. And so what, many towns have taken upon themselves is to try to get their own vaccine programs together. And the first priority in order to get that done, to get the approval from the state, is that you have to have a full-time nurse already on staff, not go out and hire one. And Tenafly does not have a full-time nurse on staff. Leonia does. So Leonia has gone ahead and gotten all the approvals they needed to do from the state. They have ordered their first batch of vaccine, which is supposed to arrive somewhere between February 8th and 10th. And the mayor over there and I have been discussing doing a shared services agreement where that vaccine will be available to both Tenafly residents and Leonia residents. In order for us to be able to do that, we need a couple of things. The shared services agreement. We need to, Tenafly needs to provide volunteers made up of medical professionals, which include doctors, nurses, and EMTs. The doctors and nurses will actually be able to administer the vaccines, and the EMT's job will be to be post-vaccine observers. Plus, Tenafly is being asked to put up our share of the costs of things like needles, gauze pads, Band-Aids, all that sort of accoutrement that goes along with the vaccination process. The mayor and I have discussed an estimate of no more than $24,000 in three $8,000 tranches. In other words, first tranche of $8,000, we'd have permission from the council to use that money, but we would have to come back to the council to get approval for section 2 and 3. So we're just total 24,000, 8,000 first. Mid-Bergen has supplied all the refrigeration at no cost to Leonia for them to be able to do what they have to do to keep the vaccines in the right environment. The vaccines are actually would come to us at no cost, through the programs through the federal government. Again, the money we would be spending would be to pay for our supplies. I indicated that the rollout would start February 8th or 10th with a full start February 15th. We would have Tenafly volunteers working in Leonia. Tenafly residents would go to Leonia. Because Leonia has the full-time nurse, we can't play any games. We have to do it where the full-time nurse is, even if it's our own doctors from our town doing the doctors and nurses doing the actual vaccines. That's how it works. Who's got questions? Lauren? Lauren, yes.
How will you vet our medical professionals that will assist in the administration of the vaccine?
So
how are we going to pick and choose?
So they all have to be licensed. So I don't have all the detailed answers on this phone. That's part of our, I've talked to Dr. Chertoff, who, actually, again, not to put words in his mouth, he's not on the phone. He's very excited about this whole concept. He's going to help put the volunteers together. Obviously, they would have to be currently licensed medical professionals. I've had a conversation with our borough attorney, who is reviewing details of liability issues, which there are a whole bunch of details on, and then we'll have a vetting process. And to go beyond the vetting process, Leonia has a software process where our residents and Leonia's residents will be able to go in and register for their time slots to get the vaccine.
So, Mark,
Yes.
I just wanted to say that I did reach out to the health committee and asked as well, because I know you'd mentioned about having to have New Jersey licensed medical professionals. So I have a meeting with them on Thursday where I'm going to also reiterate this and maybe just throwing it open. It's not like we have so many people on the committee. So I just thinking maybe in public that perhaps we can throw this open, that if somebody even knows a doctor, nurse, or EMT, that perhaps they should be contacting you or me so that we can start this, because these are weekday clinics and we're all so eager to, well, I know of many people eager to get the vaccine, that it would just be a shame if it's at all slowed down because we don't have the staff, so.
So I mean, 100% valid, but we have not gone out and marketed this whole thing because first we need consensus from the council to move forward. Once we have that, then we'll go full steam ahead with opening our arms to everyone.
Yeah.
Vinu, please.
Yeah. So my basic question is, okay, we have to put out 24,000. I understand the 3 tranches of 8,000 each, but why? I mean, with other facilities, we don't have to put out any money. Why are we involved in something where we have to lay out money for, I mean, is it just that we're getting our residents the ability to have the vaccine, or is it, I mean, is there?
So my motivation is strictly to get Tenafly residents to the front of the line to the best I can. I see the struggles that are going with these large, groups of places for people to go. We get daily correspondence from I get daily correspondence from our seniors who can't drive to the Meadowlands, don't want to go down to Rutgers University and that sort of, for whatever reasons they have.
But
Michelle,
can they go to ShopRite? Or can they go to ShopRite, or can they go to Englewood or Newbridge Medical Center where, I understand. Yeah, I understand that it's hard to get to the bigger facilities, but how does it compare to Newbridge Medical Center?
Sure. So our residents absolutely can go to ShopRite when ShopRite has the vaccines, and the Kent family, has been very helpful in making sure everyone knows about that. Our residents, our first responders have been able to go there. Some of our residents have been able to go there, but that is also a location that has a limited amount of vaccines available to them. And when we're participating in our own location, that means there's more vaccines available to the people, the residents of our town, in addition to the existing ones. So it's the whole goal is to get, my goal in this process, our goal into this process is to get as many people vaccinated as soon as possible. And if we open up another outlet, it's just another way to get more people vaccinated. Lauren,
Yeah, but
go ahead, Vinu. Finish your thought.
Just to finish, the thing is, I think there's a bit of a bottleneck rather than it's based. They're not opening it up to the general population. So 90% of our residents, not 90, maybe more like 80 or 70%, are those that are not part of the general population. So they haven't even opened it up to those to the rest of the people. The ones who are have been permitted. Do we know what the state is? Have they all gotten vaccinated, or is it?
I know about this pretty well. I can speak to this. Because I'm a teacher and I've like signed myself up to everything and well, whatever. But the thing is that there's like no vaccines. So I hear what you're saying, Venu, in the sense of I think the reality is going to change enormously in a couple weeks, but like we have people in the 1A category that are signed up in every possible place, from Newbridge to Bergen to Holy Name to to Hackathon. I can't even tell you how many places my mother signed up to, but there is no slot. There is nothing. Well, we could go into the reason why, but there's nothing there. I do think it's going to be very different when we start getting the vaccines. But I am supportive of this because I just know that anything we can do that would facilitate that, there's going to be such a need, and the fact that it's 2 vaccines, there's so many people who want it. I just think that if we can do something to help it, even when it gets down to the 1B and the 1C category of people, I was supportive of. So
Yeah, but
Lauren Denvenu, please.
Mayor, I think this is fantastic. And Julie, I could not agree more. I have spoken with some of the people in the Senior Services Committee today, and all of them are beyond frustrated that the entire thing is computerized and on these sites that open up at midnight that you have to keep hitting refresh. Many of the people who are eligible now for the 1A are not getting vaccines. They're not getting appointments. They're not technologically savvy and going to manipulate these systems where, 100,000 people are vying for 10,000 spots. I understand that the vaccine distribution has been slow to many of the larger centers. And so if we had a direct line distribution here to our local area where we can assist with our senior center director, getting our residents those spots, that could not be more important. I want to thank you, Mayor, for getting this done and getting this facilitated in a way that can be presented to us. And it's the greatest thing we could do for our residents. I can't imagine, a better thing we could do than get our most vulnerable vaccinated right now.
Okay, so one of the reasons why I'm bringing it up is we're talking about Leonia. Okay, so we go into this. They get some vaccines. Why are they so special that they will be able to get vaccines that nobody else can get?
So okay, that's a good question. So it's all about effort. So Mayor Ziegler has done an outstanding job, advocating for his town. He has the nurse there full time, which gives him the ability to do this. And that's really where it is. It's kind of the same way we were able to get personal protective masks and gowns here in Tenafly from the get-go back in March, because frankly, we were out there hustling, at a mattress company in Brooklyn and a printing company in South Jersey to find, masks and gowns any way we could from anyone we can beg, borrow, or steal it from. And the reality is, large institutions like hospitals and universities don't think like that. They're too busy with their bureaucracy stumbling over themselves, where we just went out and did it. And it's the same thing here. Mayor Ziegler, to his credit, went out, recognized this opportunity, was able to take advantage of it, and went out and did it. And I think we should be doing the same here in Tenafly. Frankly, if all 570 something towns in Tenafly and the state did this, we'd probably have more residents vaccinated faster than waiting for these ridiculous, vaccination programs in football stadiums. But anyway, who had their hand up next? No. All right. So if there's no more questions from the council, do we need to call a roll to get consensus, or is everyone on? Go ahead, Julie.
Just a quick question, Mark. Because we are concerned about our most vulnerable, are we thinking possibly about transporting some of our seniors to Leonia? Because, to Venu's point, it's not like it's exactly next door. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, of course. You and Venu are absolutely right on that. So just on that point, we received a call from the ShopRite in Englewood. Today's Tuesday, and I received a call from the owner because there was going to be a couple of people, they were Tenafly residents, seniors that were being vaccinated that had allergies of some sort. And they asked if Tenafly TVAC can be on hand just to be, again, post-vaccine observers. And the TVAC, I spoke to JP, and he was more than happy to send his team over there. We already are helping in that way our residents. Our senior bus still to this day, even during COVID, is moving seniors around to doctor's appointments and to, shopping. So that's an easy one. Absolutely, we'll be using our senior bus to shuttle people back and forth. Any other questions, or do we have a consensus here to move forward on them? Okay, all right. All right, thank you very much. I think this is good stuff. We'll do the best we can to move forward. Wendy, you know, we had a conversation about reaching out to start asking about a shared services agreement. So if you can, you know, take the lead on that tomorrow, we'll get that going.
Yes, Mayor. I actually spoke with their borough attorney today, and he's just waiting to hear back from me tomorrow as to whether the governing body gave consensus to move forward.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Wendy. Okay, great. Thank you, everyone, with that. All right. The next item on the agenda is the administrator's report. Jimmy?
Thank you, Mayor. Just one item that we did fill the vacancy, or will be filled, for the in the building department for the assistant to the construction official. This individual will begin on February 1st. She will serve as the assistant to the construction official as well as the zoning board secretary. So we're looking for her coming on board to assist in that department. And that's all I have for tonight.
Does Victoria want anything? I just want to give her the opportunity. I know it's in HR.
Yeah, no, thank you, Councilman Dayton. So yeah, we offered her the position. She accepted. As Jimmy said, she'll be coming on board on February 1st. I think she'll be a great addition to the building department, and she'll be wonderful with the residents. I'm looking forward to welcoming her on board.
Thank you both.
Jimmy, that was it?
That's it for tonight, Mayor. Yep.
Thank you. Are there any questions about the resolutions?
Mayor, before we get to that, may I turn it, if Wendy wouldn't mind, to Wendy for a second to discuss her request to change the structure of how we vote on the resolutions?
Sure, good time to do that. Go ahead, Wendy.
Sorry, I just realized I was muted. With regard to the consent agenda, moving forward, during the work session, obviously there's the time for discussion as to what the background is on certain items and resolutions. But when it comes to time to vote in your regular meeting, which will follow, the consent agenda is voted as one vote. There's not the opportunity to vote yes on some resolutions and no on others. Otherwise, it isn't actually a consent agenda. So if there is an item that a council member feels that they do not want to vote yes, or that they want to vote differently from the rest of the other items, at the beginning of that section, or if you would like to mention it and we can do it as when the mayor asks me if there's any revisions to the agenda as we start the next meeting, but we will pull those resolutions out for a separate roll call vote. That way the consent agenda truly is just a yes or a no vote from each council member.
So we pull the resolutions and vote separately.
Only if you want to vote differently on a resolution than you do on others.
And do the council members announce that during the work session portion or the public meeting portion before we call the vote?
It really could be either. There's no set sequence for that. If you know ahead of time and you want to announce it during the work session now, I can include it with the changes to the agenda that I will announce at the beginning of the next portion of the meeting. But if for any reason you want to announce it as the agenda item for consent comes up, you would just ask the mayor that you'd like to pull or whatever number it may be for a separate vote.
Okay, very good. Now, thank you for that, Wendy, for that. It sounds very helpful, actually. So now, do we have any questions about the resolutions? No?
Mayor, I actually have one. I'm going to be asking or advising the governing body that I'm asking to pull resolution, and I apologize, I had the number written down and now I can't see where. To pull resolution R21-58. There's some numbers that are a little bit off on the resolution. So this isn't going to be pulled for a separate vote. It's just being pulled and we'll bring it back to the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
When is the public comment?
Public comments coming up at the public meeting, which will be starting shortly.
Okay.
Okay, any questions about the minutes? No, okay. For the good of the order, website update, Councilwoman Dayton, please.
Okay, we are slowly but surely moving ahead with our new website. I would like to request, with Binu, of course, that we start working and assigning authors to boards and committees so that they may have time to create new web pages. And so I know each of us is liaison to committees and boards. If we can reach out to those boards and maybe have one or two people designated so we can get them designated to work on a web page for that board or committee, so we can get them back to our website committee and present them, Omar, Karen, and any of the authors that are going to be editing the actual pages to do the work.
So,
Does that make
Lauren, when
sense?
you're saying for us to go to our committees to ask for a person or two to work on their webpage, are you meaning just supplying content or
Yes.
how? Okay, all right.
So we have trained people within the borough to be what we're calling authors, and those are going to be the people who actually do manipulate the actual website. And Omar's trained, and we have our professional assisting at the moment. We are hoping, of course, to ease out of our professional and get into our existing authors within the borough. And so to start that process, we do need to get the content. So essentially, they don't need to know how to make a website. We have people to do that for them. They need to say, I want this link, this photo, this information for the public.
Okay. Any
Can I
other
make a
questions
suggestion
about the
to
website? Go ahead, Dan.
Can that come from the borough administrator? So we are all sending the same message to all the committees rather than, oh, my committee did this, that committee brought this, blah, blah, blah.
It's a great idea. That's fine. I know Omar was going to spearhead some of this as well. So either Jimmy or Omar, whatever you guys want.
Yeah, we'll coordinate. I'll coordinate with Omar tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Omar, Dan, just so you know, Omar had sent out surveys to all of our departments, so that way it was consistent. So we could do something similar as well.
Okay. Thank you for that. Next on the agenda, recycling program, carts and flyers, Council President Dayton and Councilman Grossman. And before you guys take over, I just want to say thank you to both of you and Michael Cassidy. Jeff, I know you've been working on this for the past couple of years, and it's just outstanding. Thank you. I know, Lauren, you've been right there with Jeff, and you guys have done a great job with this entire rollout. And knock on wood, Michael Cassidy, operationally, he's getting those carts out there, which is all good news. I don't know if you're on the call still, Michael, but thank you also. Jeff and Lauren, you there?
Mark, can I just say one more person that should be recognized is Max Bosch for
Yes.
all the work that he did.
Yes.
But
Councilman
just
Max Bosch, I agree.
That's all.
He was right there spearheading it from the beginning. Okay, Lauren and Jeff, go ahead.
Jeff, go for it.
Yeah, you put on, Lauren, but we are having the rollout finally after 2.5 years. The one-arm trucks, we did have a Zoom public meeting on Sunday night, and a lot of people had a great input, really great input and good questions. So I believe we're posting that, Mayor,
That's correct.
You recorded it, so it will be posted.
I recorded it, and I think, yes, I think I sent also both the links to both of you, perhaps.
Yes.
But go ahead.
So it'll be on the borough website at some point.
Yeah, we'll get that up tomorrow.
Yeah, so that way anybody who's listening who did not catch it on Sunday has questions, listen to that, because there was a lot of explanation, a lot of good questions. And one of the greatest suggestions was somebody saying that we should put together kind of like a how-to video on what is and is not recyclable. And I think that's a fantastic idea. And I saw a script already floating around for some of this. So we're going to take these suggestions to heart. There's really nothing more I can say that I didn't say the other night. So I don't want to be repetitive. Go listen when that is posted. We covered a lot of grounds and answered a lot of questions.
I just want to add, thank you to Jimmy and our team. Each resident, if they could see this, will get this flyer. Jimmy, it looks fantastic. Very nice and clear. It'll tell you exactly what you need. On this side, it has enormous amounts of information, answering questions, has schedules, explaining the new program. So hopefully each and every household will receive that. And thank you for getting that out, Jimmy. Job well done. As the program rolls out and we learn how to better operate our one-armed trucks, I think you're going to find a lot of efficiencies throughout our borough. We're hoping to achieve, less people on the truck, which will free them up for potholes and parks and playgrounds and trees and other DPW repairs, building maintenance. So we really are excited about this program. We hope it provides some cost savings and efficiency to our borough. We hope you like your new cans. I know my kids are convinced they can fit inside of them. So that's the goal for tomorrow. We got them today. So thank you. It was a very efficient rollout. I was watching the truck do the deliveries today, actually stuck in our school carpool line. So that was interesting. But it was a very, hopefully, fast process. So if you haven't gotten them yet, please look for them. They will continue to be delivered till February 5th. Is that correct?
That's correct. Okay. All right. Ready to go on? Next item on the agenda. Thank you both for that. Next item on the agenda, old business, Fister's Pond. Lauren?
So last week we told our conversation, we have to actually vote as a council whether we would like to move this project forward for the next phase, which is the hydro raking phase. We had been asked to toll the project by the Nature Center board so that they may consider as a full board the proposal given by our engineer to go through the center of the Nature Center down to the pond from the Hudson Street side, instead of going through private property on the opposite side of Fister's. The cost considerations, as we all heard, make it almost no option to go the opposite direction, unfortunately. The Nature Center board met this week. I was able to listen in on the conversation and the vote. And, while they were, of course, upset about the concept of going through any part of their nature center, they all realized the reality of the situation, and they did vote to move it forward as proposed by the engineer. I know that the Nature Center board is here and they can make public comment if they would like, or if anyone wants to ask them directly about that conversation that they had earlier. But, given that they're on board, this is the engineer, this is their recommendation on how we should do the project. The question is, does our council want to move forward on this next phase? The money has already been allocated in the open space ordinance. We have to vote to move forward if we would like to get into this bidding process here. This is not the RFP. That will still need to be vetted by our mayor and council at this table, by Jimmy, as he works with our engineer. And so that will be presented at the February 9th meeting. This is giving permission to get to that next stage.
So you're asking the council for their consensus to move forward with the bidding of the hydro raking, to be clear.
I am. So the way the project was initially set out is, even though we put the money in open space, correct, each phase of it was to be voted on by the council.
That's correct. That's correct. Okay, so questions? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Who's got it?
Yes, hi. So I'm interested in this project proceeding, but I did have just a few concerns that maybe Deborah and Andrew might be able to address. So the idea that we're coming in from now Hudson as opposed to the other entry, can you speak a little bit to that about the gravel and stuff that the trucks are going to be going on, and then how can we mitigate that after? I'm just concerned about any loss of forest. So and also, before I let you answer, maybe I'll just get two questions in. Can you also, I understand that this is a man-made pond, so maybe you could speak a little bit to how this increases the health of this area, because obviously part of me is thinking like, okay, well, let's let it go back to nature, but if you can eliminate me in the discussion regarding why is this a healthy thing to do.
Sure. and Andrew, if you want to step in at any point, just let me know. But first off, it is a man-made pond as of like the 1900s. It's a really old pond, and so the plant life and animal life there is now pond. Like that is what is there. The biodiversity that we find there is the pond. If we were let it to go through succession, we would lose a huge asset to the nature center. A huge amount of biodiversity would be lost. And we would open up a giant mosquito farm, basically, because as ponds become wetlands and wetlands become in succession with forest, that's basically what ends up happening is you have a lot of areas for things like mosquitoes to survive. The conversation basically went that they were going to be utilizing our current main trail, and they were going to basically alter it and flatten it out a bit so that it can accompany the trucks. We were told that they didn't think that they needed to remove any trees on the path going down so that it wouldn't affect the land parallel to our current path. There is one area that they would need to alter, and it's an area that isn't really utilized, but it would be in an area then that would actually make it easier access and a better access point for everything from our programming to just visitors' experience to be able to get close enough to the pond while not being in the pond.
Well, that's where I get a little concerned is that, you know, does that now, are we expanding a footprint? That was just, you know, it kind of got my ears perked a bit.
I mean, the proposal is going to have to expand some sort of a footprint because you can't put trucks down there and let them turn around on a path that's just big enough for a truck. However, the idea, and like I said, Andrew, if you want to interrupt me, please do. The idea of it would to work because it is a nature center. They have to utilize natural materials. They have to be able to basically make it so that it's still natural when they're done. But the idea that we would then be able to have this access point easy enough to get to the pond is, trust me, I mean, I spent hours and days and a lot of conversations about this because the number one thing I did not want is for anything to happen to that forest. Yeah. But when looking at the different options, this option was the best. It had the least amount of tree damage. It had the least amount of harmful footprint for what we can afford.
Yeah. Also, if I may add, is so based on discussions with Mazer and Lauren has been wonderful leading this. Is the road will have to be widened a little bit, but not by much, because we rebuilt it a couple of years ago. So it's pretty good. If anything, they're going to lower it and widen using the material and bring some more in. But the width they need still fits within the opening of the main trail. So Andy's comment was they will not have to widen the opening between the trees. The current width of that clearing is sufficient. They just have to build the road sufficiently wide for the trucks to get through it.
Keeping in mind that our current trail does curve down. So when they're widening it, they're also just making it so that it's not curving down anymore.
Yeah, and the whole idea
curvature is going to be flattened.
Yeah, the edges, the transitions from the road to the forest and to the dam at the end of it is something that we're going to be discussing in detail as the project progresses. Hope, did we answer your question?
No, I'm in favor of this proceeding. I just wanted to make sure that, you know, because you're the guardians of the
Absolutely
center. So.
Oh yeah, and there's going to be a lot of details and we have a board that's very interested in making sure that when it's done, it will be better than when they went in to start with.
And now we're thinking that this project and this cleaning would last approximately 20 to 30 years. And that's what I think Lauren told me. And my hope would be that hopefully in 20 years from now, they'll have some technology that won't be hydro raking, possibly.
So I think it's also a question of how we're going to maintain it afterwards, because right now it is so far gone that any regular maintenance type activity, it would be fruitless. But once it's cleaned out, then there are technologies, pellets, and other things that can be applied that we can slow down the progression the next time. It's nature, and we know a lot more about we've seen what it can do, so we'll be more proactive also, I think.
Can I make a suggestion?
Go ahead, Dan.
This is for the council. After this project is done, I think we should be very cognizant of the repairs we should make when the project is done. If anything like the road or the parking lot there or the actual trail is damaged, I think we should be responsible for bringing it back to normal.
What do you mean by that, Dan? Bringing it back to normal?
If the trucks crack the asphalt in the parking lot, let's say, we should bring it back. We should repair it. We should bring back a normal parking lot or something along those lines. If the trucks screw the trails up so bad, we should bring it back to like it should be on our plate to bring back to the way it was.
So that's a very interesting point. So I would imagine Andrew and Deborah, and when you work with Mazer, that has to be part of your RFP process in terms of right up front, remediating whatever damage may or may not be done, right? So that everyone up front knows what the true cost is, because we don't want to walk away from this spending X amount of money and then finding out we have to spend X times 2 to fix it all, right? So good point, Dan.
Can I jump in as well?
Of course.
So that actually, Dan, you're right. We did discuss this with Mazer, and one of the things we're going to put in the bid is that it has to be returned to the state close to it, how it found the nature center. The center trail needs to be returned. If they use any natural material, the nature center has the option to remove that, such as, big rock or gravel. They are supposed to repair any damage to the parking lot. I think that should all be in the bidding, and I think Mazer has that in the bidding. So when we review the bid for February 9th, can you, let's just check the language. Let's just remember to check the language on all of that.
Okay, any other comments from council members?
Yeah, Mayor.
Jeff, please go ahead, Jeff.
So I think this is great that we're getting around to this. My caution would just be, and I've talked with Andrew about this, and I've been off and on involved with this over the years, is that to maintain that pond going forward is going to require pellets and other things to keep it going for 30 or 40 years before it would need whatever the next technology. And I would just ask that the Nature Center Board give some thought to how that's going to get done, because the town has invested a lot. It's not that we're not going to invest a lot more, but it would be my preference that the Nature Center kind of look to ways that it can work to maintain the pond without always turning for the next 40 years to the town for all of this project. We are supportive. We will continue to be. I think every year we also give, in addition to any of these funds, what, $35,000-$40,000 a year to the Nature Center. We believe in it, but please help us out.
Understood.
Help us help you.
Message received, Councilman.
Any other comments from council members?
Mayor, if I may quickly.
Of course.
I spoke with Mazer's office today. I believe the next step would be for approving their proposal for their professional fees for this. So at the next meeting, they'll have that prepared. I'll speak with them tomorrow just to let them know, what the council's decision is going forward, and I believe that will be on for the next meeting. But I could confirm with them tomorrow.
That would be great.
Can I ask one quick question?
I was just going to close, Andrew, but go ahead if you want to ask
So-
another question.
The only question is, based on the last comment, is Mazer able to prepare whatever documentation they need to do before those fees are approved? So that next meeting, you guys can actually look at the RFP and hopefully approve it.
I believe when I spoke with Andy last, all of that was going to be prepared for February 9th meeting. So the language in the bidding plus, that bid will have the engineering fees within it to review.
So they can prepare all that even before their engineering fee is approved.
I believe so. I believe we approved the engineering firm fees as part of the bidding. But, we'll see what they come back with in 2 weeks.
Okay.
But I think that's the goal.
Yeah, right. If we don't have an RFP, they're not going to have any engineering fees.
Right.
Right. So
they are funded to prepare the RFP for next meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a general, just to throw it out there because you raised it, we have a general practice of we don't ask anyone for RFPs unless we're really serious about actually going through, with the particular, but sometimes they don't go through, but we don't do it just for fun.
So I'd like to,
Lauren?
do we call a vote on this, Mayor? I'd like to get a consensus or a vote.
Well, I'm not hearing, consensus is consensus, right? So I'm not hearing any objections whatsoever. So unless someone raises, do we need to vote on this, Omar?
I
Do we need
believe we
council
voted on the
consensus?
last phase.
Omar?
So we do not need to vote on it, Mayor. We can just move forward with the consensus.
Yeah, it does. So I think unless I hear objections, it sounds like we've got 6 council members who would like to move forward on this. And Andrew, Deborah, Lauren, Jimmy, it sounds like it's full speed ahead.
That's fantastic.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
4
you.
years later.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you to the council for consenting to move forward on this.
Thank you.
Deborah, Andrew, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, 2 more items, then we're done with the work session. Shared Services Fellow.
Jimmy had brought in last time the possibility of a grant for funding services for a fellow. We have an application deadline of February 26th. Whether we want to appoint somebody. The purpose of the grant is to incentivize and facilitate shared services among the municipalities. This is a human being that we would have to appoint. So we didn't make a decision on this last time. I don't want to miss the deadline if we want to do this.
So do we need to hear from Jimmy on this a little bit? Tell us what's going on here.
Yeah, I don't have that paperwork in front of me, but I do distinctly remember there's that grant is for the shared services is broken into 2 parts. One part is for many governmental agencies, and the other part is just for counties. That part for the fellow is only available to counties. The part that we would be eligible for is the $150,000 that's split 3 ways up to $50,000 max. That's the portion we'd be eligible for. So I believe the shared services vaccine could fall under that if we want to, potentially move forward for that as an application. Any ideas are eligible. Any shared services ideas are eligible, whether they're new or existing. But I just wanted to clarify that second portion was only eligible for counties.
So does it cost us anything to do this? Obviously, we have to invest time.
No, if we're just using town hall staff, I could, if the directive is, to instruct me to it's just more of narrowing down which shared service we'd want to try to apply for this grant. And that's kind of the direction I would like.
Council members, go ahead, Lauren.
The Shared Services Committee is actually supposed to meet in the next week or so. I'd love to be able to bring this with them. Jimmy, if you'd like to be at that meeting so you can better explain, that would be great. It's gonna
That's a great idea.
This will be the first time the Shared Services Committee is actually going to meet. So again, I'd like to give them some maybe concrete ideas that they can choose among. So maybe we'll brainstorm line with everyone else's approval.
Can I add an idea?
Absolutely.
So last year, through the county, we did not shared service, but we consolidated our municipal alliance groups. So that could actually qualify because now we're a consolidated group, and the shared service part is that we take care of the financials for 3 towns.
And that's set up already?
When you say we take care of the finances, are we paying all the bills, or are we managing the balance sheet and the P&L?
We manage the balance sheets.
Okay. Great idea. Council's good with all this? Sounds like we have consensus on this one for the Shared Services Committee with a couple of ideas to take the lead on. Okay. There you have it, Lauren. All right. Next item on the agenda is the food truck ordinance. Did we lose Lauren?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. Food truck ordinance.
I think I put this back on as well. I think we were deciding whether we wanted to amend the language on this. How did we leave it?
No, Lauren, Adam was going to be talking to Wendy and bringing, but yeah, this is premature, right, Adam?
Well, that's why it's on old business. That's why. Okay.
Yeah, so I offered at the last meeting to get feedback from the downtown committee. We had a meeting last week. The committee overall believed that we should have it more often than just 1 or 2 special events a year, but there was hesitancy around having something 365 days a year sitting locally. The idea, one idea that a lot of people resonate with a lot of people is maybe we do it once a week or once a month, and you bring in new food trucks. So what it does is it actually does bring people. You'd actually hold it downtown. So one person actually said, maybe do a catty corner to the Wells Fargo and that the Christmas tree parking lot of sorts. So it really is downtown. It builds excitement that others could benefit as well. So I'm happy to work with Wendy on moving towards an ordinance that looks something like that based on the feedback that we've received. I think that is pretty consistent with what we heard as a council before, where again, hesitancy to have 50 food trucks 365 days a year downtown, but equally, is there a way to bring more excitement than just having it once a year type thing? So if that makes sense to the council, I'm happy to work with Wendy on amending the ordinance, which we could bring forward it's up to Wendy at the next council meeting in 2 weeks, or certainly the meeting after that in 4.
Well, for me, I'll just speak for myself. I agree. I'm definitely into the more special occasions, but there's a difference between once a week versus once a month. The once a month sounds interesting to me. Once a week, if it happens to be on Fridays through Sundays, I would be concerned for our businesses that you've done such an excellent job with sustaining our restaurants. So, the devil would be in those details. Once a month, though, I'd be more open to.
Anyone else?
Any other comments from council members? Or sounds like we have consensus for Adam to work with Wendy on this and then come back to the council. Okay, hearing no objections, Adam, there you have it.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a motion to adjourn this meeting to the regular meeting in the council chamber? Well, to the regular meeting.
So moved.
Motion. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're going to go straight to the regular meeting. Oh, I have to read the Open Public Meetings Act again. Hold on. I think I would have that memorized by now. Okay. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231, The notice requirements have been satisfied. The meeting dates for the year are confirmed at the annual meeting, are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the municipal center, and published in the record within the first 10 days of the new year. Notice of this meeting be the January 8th, 2020 Sunshine notice has been sent to the Record Suburbanite and Northern Valley Press and has been posted on the bulletin board and the borough website. Salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the
flag
of
of the United States of America
and
to the republic
which
which
stands
stands
one
one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. My video happens to be off right now because I'm losing power on my iPad. I'm going to have to switch to another one in a minute. Omar, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Dayton? Councilmember Dayton?
Here, did you get it?
Yes. Councilmember Grossman?
Here.
Councilmember Menon?
Here.
Councilmember
Present.
Councilmember Dr. O'Connor?
Here.
Councilmember Park?
Here.
Representative.
Here. Could I have a motion, please, to approve the minutes of January 12th, 2021 work session and the January 12th, 2021 regular meeting?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Omar?
That's a voice vote there.
Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Are there any, Wendy, or any revisions to the agenda?
Yes, there's a couple, Mayor. Let's see. First, as I already mentioned, I'm asking to pull from consideration altogether Resolution R21-58 from the consent agenda. So if you could just note that when you do the consent agenda, that resolution is not included. Additionally, there is one more item that I've advised earlier that I would like to add under the attorney-client privilege for the closed session meeting, which is a discussion of litigation with LMN contractors. And Mayor, I just need a clarification as to the fence ordinance, whether the council is looking to introduce it tonight or if we are revising the recommendations. And I believe it's the second, but I just want to confirm we're revising the recommendations for the from the planning board in order to further clarify the definition of a hedge, and we'll introduce it at the next council meeting.
Council good with it? Is that the council's understanding, right?
The second.
We're all in this-
Yeah, the
yes.
second one, Lauren's language.
Okay,
Yes.
so that item is not added to the agenda.
Okay. Any other revisions to the agenda? Okay. Now it's public comment time. Audience members wishing to speak will have a 3-minute time limit to address the governing body. Please, anyone who wishes to speak, state your name and your address, please. So who would like to speak?
Taya Glotzer.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
My address is 10 East Hill Court. Can I share my screen? Because I feel like a picture's worth 1,000 words. Is that possible?
I don't know, because will we be able to unshare it, Omar?
Okay, I'm gonna try to see if I can share the screen now. Okay.
This browser doesn't support sharing. Switch to desktop.
If it helps, I don't know. Like we saw your email, or at least I saw the email that you sent today. So if those are the pictures, I know they're on my screen.
Yes, I have.
I came to visit personally to check out the property.
Okay, can you still hear me? I hope I didn't ruin myself.
Hear you, yes.
Can you hear me? Okay, good. All right. First of all, I just want to thank you all. You know how important this is to me because I've listened to your entire meeting for 3 hours, and I appreciate all that you do, and you know, it's a big job. The reason this is before you is because a request we made to enforce the law that is currently on the books in October. And for some reason, because we made a request to reinforce, to act on the law got changed. I know somebody said something about, you know, maybe the neighbors could work it out. And we actually asked Mayor Zinna to arrange a meeting between us and our neighbors. If he could mediate, we would be on board, 100% on board with that. But our neighbors are, you know, I don't know what's happened to them, but we're not going to be able to work this out in a neighborly fashion. And laws of the town are meant to balance the interest of two neighbors, right? And I wish you could all see these pictures. You know, and I have a picture of the way it used to be, but that side of our home, that's the west side, is just in the dark, completely in the dark. Even the second floor windows, the first floor windows are totally blocked. Now the second floor windows are about to be blocked, and with no limit, they will be blocked. And we will look out of our house at a wall. And I literally lose sleep over this, and it makes me want to cry. And like I said, I'm a physician. I'm happy to help with the vaccines. I will do anything, including if any of you would be able to mediate with us and our neighbors and make some sort of arrangement where we both could be happy. We'd be very grateful. But, you know, the current law says the hedge has to be limited to 6 feet. And that black fence that you see is 6 feet. You know, the basketball hoop is 20 feet, and this thing is just going to keep growing. And I don't know where to turn. And the only place I know where to turn is to my town. And, you know, I ask for your help. You know, I have another picture. I wish I could show my screen. I can't show it, guys. Switch to desktop, because I just do feel like a picture's worth 1,000 words, because I have pictures when the hedge was lower. And I also have pictures, you know, on another occasion, they know we want them to lower this hedge. On one occasion, they came onto our property and cut the side of the hedge so that on our side now it's ugly and on their side it's pretty, you know, just because they said you wanted, quote, more light. So they tried to thin it from the side. And it's acrimonious, and I feel terrible about it. You know, we used to be very friendly neighbors. You know, we had the key to their house when we first moved on the block. And I would love it if we could work this out, but we can't work it out with them. I mean, I write to them all the time, you know, can we please talk? They don't even answer my emails.
So Taya, just to thank you for your patience waiting this evening. Look, this is not an easy issue for any of us, and that's why it's taken 3 to 4 months for us to talk it through. Because on the planning board and the council, we've tried to find a solution here that works. We've reached out to the neighbor. That sort of reconciliation doesn't seem to be happening.
But tell me why. I mean,
so it's very, you know, we govern in broad strokes. We have to take the entire town into consideration. We can't pass ordinance specifically or protect or defend ordinances specifically because, you know, two neighbors are unfortunately in an acrimonious situation. And I don't expect you to agree with me, but we can't be in a situation where we're forcing hundreds of residents to cut down bushes and trees and hedges and on borough property. This is, you know, we have to balance the entire community, not just the two neighbors who, you know, used to be friendly, it sounds like, who are no longer. It's very difficult for us to step into that.
Totally understood, but I don't understand, why would you have to, if there is a limit on the height of a wall, why is there a limit on the height of a wall between properties? There's a limit because it's not fair to one side to have a 30-foot wall next to their house. And the thing is, if you were to enforce it, what does enforcing it in this situation have to do with other situations? It has nothing to do with other situations.
Because then other neighbors can now start demanding that their neighbors take down and cut down their bushes and trees and hedges.
But do you think that would happen? Have you had lots of complaints between neighbors about hedges?
No, but we can't arbitrarily make the rules for one person different than another.
No, but the rules currently state that this type of thing can only be 6 feet high.
Right. So the current rules from a policy standpoint, we've discovered because you've brought this to the surface, and from a policy standpoint, neither the council, myself, or the planning board support it. It's really a bad law. It's never been enforced. And the last time it ever came up about 15 years ago, which none of us even knew about without doing kind of the history work on it. That whole thing died because no one wanted to enforce it. They didn't make the decision to take it off the books 15 years ago, but we're making a decision to take it off the books now.
But it's just,
And
it's like, you know, we were told by the building inspector that the hedge was in violation. And it just seems like we brought it up because we've tried every other means other than going to the town.
Right.
And the law is there on the books, and now you guys spend time changing the law so that we get no reprieve.
Right, so it's almost no way for the town to give you relief on this particular detail. It's just the opposite. Our planning board for decades has basically demanded and instructed people who are building things downtown to actually put up hedges like this as a requirement to actually build.
But why don't you allow someone to build a solid wall 30 feet high?
Because we don't want it. Because every analogy doesn't fit. We don't treat, concrete walls the same as we do natural living things.
But this is effectively a wall. I mean, it allows no light. We have no light in our home. We can't see out our windows. We can't see the street.
Lauren, do you have a question?
I do. Kaya, I actually came to see the hedge. If I was on your side of the property, I would be just as distressed. So I'm sorry that this has caused such aggravation and destroyed the peace and quiet of your home. I do not think that we should ignore this type of nuisance. I think that our council should be doing better. I disagree with the mayor that we can't regulate this. I think a hedge, although I tell you, I'm going to be in the minority here, so.
But it's just like, what
I
do we
think a
do?
hedge
We
as a
can't look out our
border.
windows.
I think a hedge as a border has been regulated in the past for this exact reason, because it shuts out light of an additional property, which the law recognizes as a nuisance. So I'm sorry, Mayor, but I do disagree here that the planning board should not have taken this into consideration in this way. We had a law in the books, and I understand it might be difficult to now enforce across the board, but I don't think it should be, the hedges can grow 30 feet. So I'm offering this back to council because I would like to advocate that a hedge is no higher than 8 to 10, or something that,
So Laura,
I know
I just
you're
have
going
to
to disagree,
intervene.
Mayor.
Well,
I just want to say one more thing, Mayor, before you speak, that my husband is a lawyer, and we appeared before the planning council several times, and I feel like he got a little too legalese and people got upset. But there are ways to write this in the books so that it does not mean other people have to go cut down their hedges at all. There should be a limit of 8 to 10 feet, and it only should be enforced if people complain. If the neighbors are happy, let them be happy. I mean, you don't have to go around town and cut down hedges. But I am desperate for some relief.
So we understand that.
And I agree with your husband.
I'm not going to give you false hope and tell you things that aren't going to happen, because we can't allow hundreds of residents to be subjected to their neighbors arbitrarily telling them they now have to cut down.
That's not going to happen. You said you had a complaint in this law once 15 years ago. This is the second time.
So
the law is currently on the books, and you have changed it
right,
to allow us not to get reprieve. I mean, my feeling is, at least, if nothing else, put the law into effect, cut them to 6 feet, and then we'll have another 10 years of light if you have to change the law.
Well, that's not the way to make ordinances and
But you
laws.
changed it because I asked you to enforce it.
We're changing it because it's bad law and it's bad for the entire town, and we're going to move on from this.
I disagree with you, Mayor, and I don't think it was bad law.
The council made a decision. The council made a decision,
The council
and we moved on.
made a
They can vote
decision.
again next time.
But the council hasn't made a decision that it should be changed or not additionally after this. And, I'd like to ask Jeff, who also sits at the planning board, what you think about the idea about a nuisance blocking out light.
So remember, we allow 75% open at certain heights. And, you get into the problem shrubbery, how are you going to measure 75% open? We can go through an academic discussion, but a practical discussion it's impossible. I can have hold on. You asked a question. So I can have a fence manufacturer say this picket fence, this cyclone fence is 75% open. I can have a tree professional tell me it's 75% open in shrubbery right now, but next year they grow. So next year is at 75.
But we're not talking about open. We're talking about height.
Okay, so when, you know,
but wait, the part
Jeff has the floor.
The whole question of the fences and walls and limits on them does change with how much openness. And in fact, your husband's suggestion before the planning board did have to do with questions about, well, maybe it could be a certain percent open, because I made notes of that when he appeared before the
What he said doesn't matter. The point is there should be a height limit to whatever you want to call it. There should be a height limit. 100%, 25%, whatever it is, make up your limits, but there has to be limits between properties on height.
Well, I understand that, and I'm trying to actually answer Councilwoman Dayton's initial question. So the reason I talk about openness is you have different distances between shrubs. So if we're talking about I plant one arborvitae, or let's say I plant 3, and they're 15 feet tall, but they're 6 feet apart. Is that what we're talking? How do we distinguish that, especially as they grow and change in nature, from what we've all seen? I've drove past that site too. Obviously, it's an aberrant situation, but you can't always find exact wording for an aberrant situation. So Councilwoman, I hope I've given you some answer, and I've dealt with this for years when on the zoning board as well.
So that's why I changed the definition, Jeff, and that's why I've asked for that definitional change, because I am not talking about the instance where arborvitaes are 6 feet apart. What I changed the definition, or what I would like to change the definition, is to a natural boundary formed by closely growing bushes and plants or shrubs together to create division or privacy, so that the plants actually have to physically grow together, and that's the definition of a hedge. So it's not just that you planted landscaping, like I have trees spaced out, but that it's an intended
wall.
Essentially,
intended wall. And my
Okay,
husband,
guys,
hold on one second.
Jeff, Lauren,
please.
this is not a work session. We're sliding backwards. The council 3 hours ago decided the direction to move. There'll be an opportunity to talk about this again when it comes up for a vote. And it'll be more opportunity for public comment also.
Okay, Mayor, I would appreciate it if you would let us know when the next meeting is. I mean, like I sat here for 3.5 hours waiting for this opportunity. We didn't, please let us know when the next meeting is so we have an opportunity. And to all of you who are listening and who have looked at these pictures, I beg of you to please find a way to help us, because we've been dealing with this for like 10 years. And it's come to a head, and it's going to just keep growing. And I need your help, or at least someone mediate. Come and talk to my neighbor with me and reason with them, which, Mayor, you said you would do. And I did
have a conversation with your neighbor, and there was no resolution to the issue.
Yeah, because they love their hedge and they would love to just keep growing it.
Right. Okay.
But I mean, the thing is, you're supposed to be nice to your neighbors and try to make something that both people can live with. That's what people should do.
Agreed. Okay. All right. Thank you for your time.
Grateful to you all if you can help us. Okay. And thank you for your hard work.
Thank you. Any other public comments this evening? I don't see any hands up there. Okay.
It's Wendy. I just wanted to point out that we're at 10:52 and the council does have an 11 o'clock curfew. We may need a motion to extend curfew for this evening.
Okay, so can I get a motion to extend the curfew to 11:30, please?
So moved.
Second?
Oh.
All in favor?
No.
And that's going to be it, 11:30. All right, can I get a motion?
Where's the vote?
Wait. But the vote did not happen. For all the working people, gotta get up in the morning.
Right.
The vote did not happen.
Okay, let's have a vote. Omar, call the roll.
Okay. Councilmember Dayton,
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman,
No, in deference to my students.
Councilmember Menon,
No.
Councilmember Michaels,
No, I'm happy to meet the next day.
Councilmember Dr. O'Connor,
No, students.
Councilmember Park.
Yes.
Okay, so we've got 7 minutes. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, absent R21-58, which has been pulled?
So moved.
So moved.
Do I get a second?
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Dayton,
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Menon,
Yes.
Councilmember Michaels,
Yes.
Councilmember Dr. O'Connor,
Yes, and God bless you, Adam.
Thank you. Sorry.
Councilmember Park.
Yes.
You want to go into closed?
Well, we've got,
Mayor.
yes.
With all due respect,
suspend
council persons, I
committee
understand
report.
everyone has an early morning tomorrow, but I'm going to ask again at least till 10:15 because there are matters, I'm sorry, 11:15 because there are matters on closed which are extremely timely.
Can I get a motion to do this to 11:15, please?
So
So
moved to
moved.
11:15.
Second,
Second.
call the roll.
Councilmember Dayton,
Yes.
Councilmember Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Menon,
Yes.
Councilmember Michaels,
Yes.
Councilmember Dr. O'Connor,
Yes.
Councilmember Park.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion? Can I get a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
So
Can I
moved.
get a second?
Second.
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 All in favor?
Aye.
Wendy, can you read the closed session language? And then we're all going to log off and go back on to the closed session email we got from Omar.
Yes, so we have Resolution R21-74 at a regular meeting of the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Tenafly, County of Bergen, State of New Jersey, held on January 26, 2021. Be it resolved that in compliance with NJSA 10:4-12, the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Tenafly are going into closed executive session to discuss the following matters. Under collective bargaining exemption, there's a PBA update, and under attorney-client privilege, there is the property acquisition update, litigation update, and anticipated contract negotiation.
Okay. We're going into, everyone sign off. We already voted, so everyone go into close, right?
One more thing, Mayor, I'm sorry, I paused when I shouldn't have, but I just need to add in that minutes will be taken and action is anticipated.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. I'll see everyone in close immediately.
Here I dreamt I was a soldier, and I marched the streets of Bergen, and I